here today. With everyone, the familiar faces and the new faces, of course. First of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know we are all very busy with our own programs and whatnot, but still having you together with us is something that is highly appreciated, definitely. Yeah. So kita let us start our session today with Umul Kitab to seek for the barakah from Allah. There's never a beautiful journey without His blessing, the Almighty.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Dr. Yazid nak baca doa sikit. Silakan.
Kita Tatia. Auzubillahi السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. اللهم يا عليم يا حكيم يا رشيد يا رحمن يا رحيم. لا إله إلا الله العظيم الحليم. لا إله إلا الله رب العرش العظيم. لا إله إلا الله رب السماوات رب العرش الكريم. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much, Dr. Yazid, with the prayer, the dua for all of us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have here in our session today a very special webinar, Wacana Reka, from brought to you special by the Faculty of Design and Architecture, hosted by our Deputy Dean, Associate Professor, Dr. Dr. Muhammad Yazid Muhammad Yunus, our Deputy Dean of Research in the faculty. All right, and this is also in conjunction with the celebration of 25 years of Faculty of Design and Architecture. So we're already 25 years, and the 25th celebration is something that is really special to each one of us, since this is a place where we really spend our life, our heart, and our soul in every single day, inshallah, yeah. So, and today, very special, not only to us and also to all the participants today, we also brought to you another special Professor Landscape Architect, Dr. Hassanuddin bin Lamid, to be with us, right? To share with us on his journey and experiences, right? And we named this session as Creating Dynamics for Writing a Personal Narrative. So because of that, I believe that this session today is very informal. So don't worry about asking questions. Don't worry about sharing your situations, because we all have here, Prof. Some of them are the postgraduate students from our faculty and also from UKM. Zol is from UKM. We also have a few practitioners who are very interested in research and publications, of course. And then we also have a very prominent researcher, Dr. Sri is also here. He's very prominent in our department, the one that really gave us motivations, of course, together with Dr. Yazid and many more. So all in all, thank you so much for being with us. And very special for Prof. Hassanuddin also is actually Prof. Dr. Hassanuddin is actually, he is among the landscape architects, academicians who has 14H index. So now it's very difficult among landscape architects to have even H index more than 7 above, yeah. But we see Prof. Hassanuddin, Prof. Dr. Hassanuddin has double of it. So what's the secret? What's the passion and what's the narrative behind it? So these are the things that we're going to explore with him, right? So I believe that allow me to read a little bit about Prof. Dr. Hassanuddin by data. For might be some of you might first time got to know Prof. Yeah, but we feel like family because he's my teacher, our teacher. Myself, yeah, we have Prof. Dr. Yazid, we have L.A.R. Hatta, Dr. Shurin, and we have L.A.R. Suzanne. So most of us here are family. Yeah? So we got to know each other. So let's make this session alive. So formally, let me just read out Prof. Academic qualification. So Prof obtained his PhD from University of Sheffield in the year of 2001. and Master of Arts, University of Sheffield, 1991, and Bachelor of Architecture, University of Western Australia, 1986, and Diploma in Architecture, UTM, in 1982. So he received numbers of awards and honors. I believe there's lots of for us to read out. Maybe awards and honors can also be explained by Prof. How does the research actually brought him to receive all these awards and whatnot, rather than I'm reading out,
Yeah,
myself be listening
yeah,
from the
yeah,
panel himself. That might be beautiful, much more beautiful. And of course, in administrative experience, he has been the head of Department of Architecture, AFB, 1997, and head of Department of Landscape Architecture, 2014, and lots of international affiliation. Yeah, so facilitator for English public module for PTK courses, appointment as evaluator for UTM penerbit books, appointment as evaluator of FRGS and GUP research grants, and many more, ladies and gentlemen, to read out. But that's among others. But allow me, that's one more thing, to read out to you his teaching philosophy. This is very beautiful. So let me take a very deep breath, and so do you. So, okay, let's have this silent moment and listen to me reading Prof. Hasanuddin teaching philosophy that makes us today. Thank you so much. I am having this very, we call it very sentimental moment, but I have to read this for you, right? Okay, from Professor Dr. Hasanuddin. I believe that students do not come to the university as blank states and often bring with them preconceived notions about the field of design in general. These preconceived notions may consist of false assumptions, generalizations, and ideologies that manifest into a lack of appreciation and understanding for the science of art and design in either architecture or landscape architecture. As I have learned through my teaching experience, my role as a teacher shifts throughout the learning process. I try to find that balance between having a more directive, active lead and having a more facilitative observer role. I prefer to see myself as an academic or knowledge facilitator rather than a lecturer, teacher, or tutor. As a facilitator, it is important for me to acknowledge that, but to also provide students with well-informed view of the arts, especially aspects of art that are closely pertinent to design. Depending on the course material, class dynamics, and student needs, the shifting of roles continues throughout the course. There are certainly times to teach and times to let the learning take place on its own. With that in mind, I frequently use myself as a springboard for illustration of concepts and catalyst for difficult dialogues. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a very strong opening for our session today. And with that, with the open heart and a very, I believe, a very special moment that we have together, I handed the floor to you, Professor Dr. Hasanuddin Lamid. Over to you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much, Antia. When you read that, for example, also brings goosebumps to myself actually, because that's the philosophy that I have always believed when I started teaching. It all comes back from my upbringing as a child, coming from a very I won't say B40 environment, you know. I believe that, and I've always believed that God has given me the opportunity to be what I am, for example, and it's time that I give back in very generously, without holding back what God has given back to me, to share with everyone, regardless of where they come from. And I always believe that opportunity should be given to everyone. Everyone. The moment they step through the gates of UTM to come and into my studio, I've given every opportunity to do well. Right? But I will engage in that particular thing next time if I were given opportunity about how we go about, how I went about teaching students, or even now I'm still teaching students with very much the same philosophy, if you like. And I think maybe Atya and all the students around here, or all my past students for them, can relate to what Atya has just mentioned just now with regards to my philosophy of teaching. Right. So anyway, okay, I'll share you some slides of what I would be talking to you about today. Ada slide nampak slide?
Ada? Yeah, very exciting. Yes.
Ada.
Okey, harap. Sekejap
And to all our participants here today, bear with us, right?
Sekejap Hang on. Something not quite right sini ni.
It's okay, Prof. I'm just reading through the list of participants here. We have Dr.
Okay,
Faza.
alright. Okay,
Okay,
Karen.
now it's ready, right? It's ready. So thank you so much for being with us. And Prof, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, hang on. Okay, Alhamdulillah, Assalamualaikum, good morning to each and every one of you. So, you see, when Dr. Yazid came to me online with regards to giving a kind of a chat, not actually a discourse, but a talk about something in general relating to writing, especially academic writing. I was rather challenged, in the sense that what should I be talking about? If you're talking about what is academic writing, I'm quite sure you've heard this thousands of times already, or you can even look through the internet or Google it, for example, and you know about all these kinds of things. So at the risk of not repeating myself, I try to find in what way can I present this particular subject, if you like. So the only way that I can think about is try to personalize the session by talking about my journey as to how I came about being pushed into, or being influenced, or being coerced into doing writing and research and things like that. And Alhamdulillah, with my involvement in this particular aspects of academic activity, apart from teaching and doing a bit of part-time job here and there, I have managed to get some acknowledgement, if you like, and to be where I am now today, right? So I've decided to call the talk today Creative Dynamics for Writing, a personal narrative, right? So it's very much a personal journey, right? So let's start off with this synopsis as to what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So I'll be talking a bit about myself, in terms of where I came from, how I came about to be what I am now, and how I started with my academic journey, and how that academic journey has given me the opportunity to be involved with so many aspects of academic activities, right? Especially with regards to writing, teaching, and also researching, and so on and so on. And I've looked back on those parameters of academic teaching, right? And look at the ecology of the academic teaching. And that's where I kind of decided, is to identify what are the dynamics that could happen that would allow me to be more concerted in my effort to do research, writing, and also, of course, teaching. Because that's my, remember, everyone, our first role and our first responsibility and our first premise of being in the university actually is teaching. It's not so much writing, and it's not so much researching. That's our main role, right? So I think we should not forget that. So that's just basically what the synopsis is going to be about. But I'll talk to you about this, some aspects of what writing should be. What does it involve, for example. I'll talk about that later on. I may tend to repeat myself, but I'll take that risk anyway.
No problem.
Okay. So what does personal narrative means? It is to describe a story in one's life. That's me, detailing the account with dialogue. We are going to have a dialogue rather than giving a lecture. The main events, the things that happens throughout my entire life of teaching, or before I started teaching, and description of people and other personal observation. This is what the premise of the talk today would be on more personal narrative platform. So this is looking back. So if you see that small child at the feet of the adults, that's me.
Oh, really?
Right. So this picture is not privy to anyone, not to many people apart from my siblings and also my anak-anak je lah. So I'm putting this out to you, everyone, right?
Thank you so much for the pleasure.
So my mother is the one betul-betul kat belakang saya tu.
Oh, cantiknya. She's so beautiful.
Dan my father sebelah dia tu.
Subhanallah.
Tapi dua-dua tu dah tak ada lah ya. Dua-dua tu dah tak ada dah. Alright. Yang lain-lain semua saudara saya lah. You know? Kami daripada keluarga Nasution tau, di Sumatera. Kami Batak Nasution ada orang Islam lah ya, Islam ni betul tu. You can see I'm quite generally endowed at this particular time. Yeah, generally anatomically I'm quite generous. Tapi sekarang punya tu juga, ya. Right. But not the reason why I'm putting this up, apart from trying to be a bit apa kata orang glib in my presentation and a bit of casualty and things like that. Casualness is to show my father and my mother tau. Right. Is to show is to show how they have actually given me the first step into what I have become today. Of course, at that particular time, I'm still young. I do not know. I haven't planned to be what I am. But I think my mother and my father planned it in such a way that then I could be what they want me to be now. And I will talk to you about them a little bit more. You see, when I was at this particular age, when I was about about to be schooling years, my dad was the only person, my dad was the only person among many of his siblings, right, who wanted to send his children to sekolah Methodist. All that anak-anak dihantar ke sekolah-sekolah kebangsaan dan sebagainya. Because at that time, the Malays, orang-orang Melayu masa tu, they have this fear that if you go to sekolah Methodist or convent, kita akan jadi bukan Islam lah. My father said no. So he sent me to this. So all my brothers, we were sent to Methodist school, and my sister, we were sent to convent school. And lo and behold, the bold decision that my father took, for example, I think when I look back and I look at all my other siblings, for example, has been rewarded really, right? So we managed to kind of return my dad's investment, a bold decision in sending us to this Methodist school and convent school by giving back to him what we have earned and learned so far to him. And my mother, for example, were behind us entirely in terms of giving us financial support and also spiritual support. Right. But my dad, once he has made that decision, he left everything to my mom to kind of bring us up and things like that, So that's great. You see, even though my father was not illiterate, he is a very, very clever, intelligent person. But because of the family background, the financial aspect was a big issue. He was not given the full opportunity to go to school and things like that. But my father can speak English, walaupun macam ni.
That's good.
Yes, right. He can speak English. So in a way, my father was partly an inspiration on me being able to speak English, if you like, So that's a little bit background as to how as to where I came from and how my father and mother had a big role in making me what I am today, right? Okay. So I'm quite sure all of us have heard this particular maxim, publish or perish, right? So what's interesting about what Louis Chiaco said, the mediocre, everyone has long operated under the mediocre slogan of publish and perish, and not taking into account that very often writers may perish the very minute they publish if they do not have something meaningful to say. And this is very, very true. You know why? Because sometimes people think that just because they write something and they put it out in public, for example, and they would be recognized for what they do. But if you write something that was irrelevant or something even maybe look a bit silly, for example, that could be the end of you, because you're almost like giving them a first impression about what you are or what kind of person you are academically and so on and so on. So make this very, very sure. Give the right impression when you have your first paper published or the first book published. Very, very important. Because if you started on the wrong foot, then people have a bad impression of you. You know what? If you started on the wrong foot, the next time you want to submit another paper, you know what? They're going to have very strong reservations about the quality of your work, even though the quality of the work may be good. But because they have memory of your first publication, they would bear that in mind. Remember, the one that's evaluating your work are not robots. They are people. They have emotions. They have sentiments. They will remember that. Right? So make sure the first publication, for those who have yet to publish, for example, make sure that it's going to be a very, very good paper. Then hopefully, and this is my theory anyway, and it's based on my experience, then what comes after that in terms of you getting having your paper published or reviewed in a favorable way will be almost there already. All right. So this is so-called one of the so-called maybe an obvious secret, but this is one of the elements that you should be aware of when you start thinking about writing. Make sure you got on the right foot. Make sure you're giving the right impression. If you can't do it alone, do it with someone else. Now, this is another secret. How do you do it with someone else? It's not just simply having a friend to write a paper. There are ways and means of doing how to do a write paper together with others, right? I'll talk about that as well in the later stage of my presentation. Right? So the three key words here, we as academics, for example, teach, practice, and write. And I have certain reservation, if you like, with regards to this particular three words, especially when it comes to this particular maxim again. Those who can't practice, teach. Right? So to me, this is almost quite demeaning, to the profession of teaching. It's as if that if you teach, for example, you are seen as being secondary to those practicing outside, for example, right? And to me, that's not human impression. So I reacted to this particular maxim, right? This is my personal my personal maxim. Those who can't teach, practice. Right? So remember, those who practice, for example, look, you cannot teach. That's why you practice. So do not look down on people who are in the academic circles of employment. We have a role to play. So are the practitioners, right? So that's why I said, do not look down on people who teach, right? But however, in the context of teaching now, what worries me is this: those who can't teach, they're already in the academic line, but they can't, when I say can't teach, of course they're teaching, but teaching in the true definition of teaching. For example, if like what Atia mentioned just now, talking about my teaching philosophy, what they do, they write. So the writing activity becomes almost like a kind of a refuge for them, or an excuse for them to not be teaching what in the way that they should be teaching, because that's the main role of being an academic in universities or in schools. So they write. To me, this is right. This is wrong also, right? So you must always look at yourself as what is your main role as an academic. Because I'm talking to academics, I think, in this particular session today, right? And those who can't write, teach, right? So some people use the excuse of teaching responsibility of not being able to write as what's desired of them. Also, I don't agree with this one here, because now the environment is totally new. The teaching ecology, the academic ecology is entirely different as in compared to 20 or 30 years ago, which I'm very familiar with, of course. I've been teaching for more than 30 years. We have to realize that this is the fact, this is the current phenomena. You have to teach at the same time. You also have to do research and also to write based on what you research, for example. Or you can also write based on what you teach, right? But at the same time, because we are a professional program, I think I would agree with this. You should not disengage yourself from the environment of practice. You still have
Correct.
to be,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to be, because that's part of what you are going to teach, and also be part of what you're going to write as well, right? So this particular ecology of practice, teaching, right, should always be with us all the time. Right? So because you know what, if you take these three aspects on board, then you know what, then you have diversity, in terms of what you want to teach. You have diversity in terms of what you want to write, and also you will have diversity in terms of what you practice. Because practitioners tend to be very, very pragmatic in terms of what they do, but the moment if they are involved rather in some way, to some degree, in teaching, for example, what they teach, for example, or what they're exposed to in terms of what is being taught in the university can also help them to think about what they want to practice, how they want to practice, maybe philosophize about what they about their work, right, and things and so on. So let's not disengage, or let's not try to compartmentalize teach, practice, and write. They are in one compartment. They are one big harmonious ecology. We should not actually ignore that. This is a fact, especially in this day and age, right? So, for example, Atia, for example, he's practicing, he's also teaching, also he's writing. So it's a very, very good platform.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you, Prof.
And also this goes for everyone as well, right? For example, Madam Susanna, for example.
Yes.
Susanna, even though he practices, of course, I'm not sure whether he writes or not, but he also plays a role in coming to impart whatever he has learned during his practice with our students here as well. Right? So to me, that's a very strong contribution as well. And I'm quite sure her involvement in coming to our faculty also has helped her maybe to think about or maybe rethink about how she should practice and so on and so on. Right? So at the end of the day, please, for those who teach or practice, try to share what you've learned, either practice or teaching by writing something. Okay. So we start off with the obvious, with the beginning. So why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do it? So there must be something behind that pushes you to what you want to do. You could be pushed, or you could be coerced, you could be influenced, right? Or you could be attracted to doing some thing that resembles writing. It could be a book, it could be in a journal, it could be a newspaper, it could be a journal magazine, for example. Right? So you need to find something. You need to find a reason. So you need something to motivate you to do that. You need to find a reason, if you like, or sometimes even at the most feeble, is to find an excuse, right? Or at the same time, you find an inspiration. Now, if you find me and Dr. Ismail or some of the other well-known professor, for example, as being people who can inspire you to do writing, then so be it. But try to find something that will give you the reason to do or engage yourself with academic writing, right? Either find some motivation, find a reason, find an excuse, or find an inspiration. That should be a very, very good start. You see, I didn't start off the beginning with what, because everyone knows what writing is all about in general, and everyone knows what academic writing is all about as well in general. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by talking about that one, right? So I'll just straight go into the why aspects of that, and then how. This is I think this is where I think many questions have been raised with regards to how do we go about doing it in a very purposeful way, and in a very way that the end is almost achievable, can be done, right? So this is what I'll be talking to you about. My emphasis to you about my talk today will be on how it can be done, and like I said before we officially start the session today, that it is an open secret actually. But I try to personalize this open secret in such a way that I can relate my experience to you, so that you know that actually then is actually human, and what is actually done actually is not unrelatable to what a human being is all about. So in other words, everyone can do it. Practically everyone can do it. So right. So I'll carry on with that. You can do it actually. This is my strong belief in that. Because if I can do it, I'm quite sure all of you can do it, right?
Very inspiring.
Yes. So the first thing that you need to do is to do a self-appraisal, right? Self-analysis of yourself, self-evaluation, self-rating, self-assessment, an honest self-opinion about yourself. Identify. Of course, you'll be proud to acknowledge to other people what your strengths are. You are a good designer, and so on and so on. You are a good teacher and so on. But also be very, very honest about your shortcomings. I'm not quite sure everyone has this. Everyone has this, right? I have my own shortcomings, which I'm not ashamed to tell you. Embarrassed, right? So, but we have a chat about what I am in terms of what I think I have in terms of my strong point or my forte, and what I see myself as what I lack in, what I would say as being a shortcoming, if you like, right? And in a way, the identification of the shortcoming that I have, right, or the deficiency or that I have, for example, and what I have in terms of what is positive, has allowed me to see how I can bring other people to compensate, if you like, to supplement, if you like, what I lack in, and how, with the strength that I have, be able to help others in doing what they want to do, but especially in the narrow context of academic writing, right? So this is very, very important. Self-appraisal, an honest self-appraisal, right? And do not be embarrassed if you're talking good things about yourself. No, be very honest with yourself, but also be very honest about highlighting. Well, don't have to tell people, right? But be very honest about what do I find myself that I need to work on, for example, which I may not be able to do during the short period of my life, but other people have that. So what can I do? So this is the how question. So we start the question about the how by doing a self-appraisal of yourself, right? So one of the things that you need to know that if you have identified, let's not talk about the strong point, the 40 of what you have, for example, but let's talk about what you already have, which is considered to be mediocre, for example, or ordinary, for example, right? Because it says by Garrett Crafter and Kathy Birkenstein, it says that ultimately creativity and originality lie not in the avoidance of established form, but in the imaginative use of them. So this is very, very important. This is also one of my philosophies of how I managed to get through my my academic life. Is that I identified what I have as being ordinary or moderate, for example, but I use imagination to how do I expand, how do I redefine, or how do I put this into a different picture of what I have that is seen as ordinary, and people can see a different light of what is ordinary to me, but people can see it in a different light to be, that is something quite good. So try to look at what you see as being a shortcoming, and try to redefine, try to reevaluate, try to appraise what you see as what you see in yourself as being ordinary, but how would you imaginatively use that as a positive element, right? Okay, I may be talking in a convoluted way what I just said, but I'll share examples of what I've just said just now, right? So of course, if the strong point that you have, there's no worry about that. There's no question about. But what you see as ordinary, for example, right? Okay, I'll give you the example. For example, I have for a very long time always thought that I was a good designer. I assumed that I was no. Wait. I'm being very honest. I'm not trying to be modest here. I always thought I always thought I was. Being an architecture student with architecture training. Getting my degree from overseas and things like that. I thought I was a good designer and things like that. But lo and behold, when I look back again, I was not as good as I thought I was. So to me, that is an honest opinion of myself, right? But one thing with which I have to say this, even though I may not be a very good designer, maybe very much in the average category, but I have to say this. I think maybe Susanna would agree with me because dia selalu kritik dengan saya. I'm a very good critic of design, right? Because when I create people, I believe anyway. This is my own belief anyway. I may be wrong. You can raise this question, for example. I tend to use my imagination. When I create people, I tend to be quite incisive when I create people. And lo and behold, sometimes many students, they were excited when they come and see me in my room. When they talk about design, they say, yes, but the moment they left the room, they look puzzled. They were lost. Because I think they were. I think so, and because I think they were slightly overwhelmed, by what I say, by what I suggest to them. At that particular moment in time, where that one-to-one interaction with them, they were excited about it. But the moment they left the room, they looked baffled. I knew this because the second time when they see me, I could see that they could not understand what I just commented on their work before, either in terms of writing or in terms of their design and things like that. So I think that's why I said, do not be embarrassed to identify what you are not good at all, but still be able to use that, right? So in my case, for example, I'm a very average designer, but to me, I believe I'm quite a good critic of designs and things like that, right? Of course, I'm talking about design, but at the same time, also a good critic of writing. And how do you think I managed to put myself in that role? I also explain to you later on. So I think in terms of design, I already said my piece, right, as to what I am and what I can do, right? Right. So now, before we go on to that, now when we talk about writing, okay, let's forget about this slide here. You see, when at school, I was very much strongly engaged, about writing, even at a very early age of my schooling years, because I come from a very poor family, but I always take I always make it an urgency. Whatever money that I spend, that I manage to save, rather, what I save, I will buy English newspaper. My father beli Utusan Malaysia Berita Harian, but I would buy English newspaper. Not so much because of the content, but because of my sometimes I would say somehow there's a kind of strange interest that I have about things written in English, right? And I bought books, and sometimes the books that I bought, for example, I read them more than 10 times again and again and again and again, because somehow rather it's not so much of the content what I read, but maybe it's the way it's written, the vocabulary it's written, for example, the structure of the things that it's been written with, for example. This is the thing that you know, in a way, has also made me what I am today, right? So in terms of design, I already said my piece. In terms of writing, I'm about to say that as well, because to me, I believe that I have that so-called an acceptable quality, or acceptable level of being able to write things in English, right? So I believe that's also another strong point of myself, which I think I have able to, in a way, I'm not saying this because I'm saying this because I'm trying to gloat about my ability, but to me, the end game, the end product, or the response, for example, or the acknowledgement that I get based on that particular ability, to me, is one of the things that I think, in a way, has assured me that what I perceive of myself in terms of being able to write in English has been more or less acknowledged. Period. Right. So I think this is one thing that I think I would like to share that with you in terms of being able to be articulate, be able to write things in English. But you see, I can have another 2 or 3 hours lecture about how to write in English. You know.
That's interesting.
You know what? Okay, I'll give you a little anecdote. This again is not, I'm not gloating ya. Saya bukan nak cakap nak saya nak bagi dia, tolong ya.
It's about
Tolong
you.
tolong ya. I think semua nak kenal saya. Semua, I think macam semua orang sampai sekarang pun they call me Cik Din lagi. Masih they call me Cik Din sampai sekarang ni. Because I feel that I still have a lot to learn. But anyway, I'll give you a little anecdotal story, right? And this has happened before, right? Again, you see, every time when I was in the administration level of the academic career, whenever there's someone who is called for interview in the faculty, I was called in as well. Whether it's architecture, quantity surveying, landscape, obviously, I will call in. I will call them. Of course, my presence there is basically to observe and evaluate the student, the candidate, based on whether he is able to be part of my department or other department in the faculty, right? So the other thing that I won't say surprise me, that they will bring 2 people from the English faculty to evaluate the presentation in English, because that's one of the criteria, But so the candidate would present his or her work in English, things like that. So I just keep quiet because I'm not supposed to be saying anything about English, because I'm not so-called professional in an expert in that particular area. So after the presentation, these PhD holders in English, so they commented on the work itself, on the presentation itself. So many of the comments that they made to me were, in a way, like are pretty obvious, grammatically right, structure, things, and all this kind of thing. But to me, is this the kind of, I hope the English lecturers are not listening to me.
Yeah.
Is that, there's something else, being grammatically correct, being properly structured work, verbal presentation. There's something beyond that, which I think none of the English lecturers actually commented on, especially in the context of teaching, So none of them have mentioned that. And I was a bit surprised, actually. And I was surprised, maybe slightly disappointed, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's what their role is all about, because they are English teachers, so they're very good English. But in my case, for example, when I'm talking about the areas of being able to be articulative in writing and also in speaking, is to be a bit more creative. Not necessarily poetic, but be a bit more creative, according to situations and things like that. Because in architecture, in landscape architecture, I think Atia would agree with me. I've heard Atia pun talk a few times ago. I'm very impressed, by your English as well. I'm not surprising anyway. And of course Susanna as well. Is that because if you are able to be creative in the proper context of when you say or when you articulate other, especially when verbal communication, people will listen to you, people will listen to you with a certain impression of what you say. And sometimes, this is another secret which I also use. That sometimes if you speak in big way, in other words, you use big vocabulary and things like that, people may be baffled what you say, but they will still be impressed with what you say. So these are the things that you should be able to do that. You see, I have the way I would approach my writing or even my verbal communication English. I tend to have a very cavalier approach, very cavalier.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what cavalier means. In other words, it's not so much being brutal about the presentation, but a bit slightly in between being harsh and also being creative. Oh, no, being ordinary and being creative. That's how I do things. And he has had this particular philosophy of me articulating English has a very big impression on me when I teach students and when I write articles. Also when I create students as well. And that's what maybe one of the reasons why students were very much in perplexed or baffled when they leave my room after having a chat with me. Because they didn't to use all these kind of things. Because I tend to be that way. Right? But anyway, to me that's what keeps me going, because I'm allowing myself to be creative in the language, for example, as opposed to simply my name is Hassanuddin. I have a different way of saying that and things and so on and so on. So in this case, please also be creative in the way you use language, either in Bahasa Malaysia or even in English. I'm quite sure all of you here are designers. So you have been creative. You have been very creative in your design work. Why can't you be creative with language, with writing? Because you know what, in writing, for example, if you're able to have that element of creativity in your writing, especially with regards to academic writing, the people tend to look at your work in a much more favorable way. This can be said not in the context of like, for example, like scientific papers, for example, where it's very straightforward. But when it comes to humans, social science, for example, or design, for example, this is where we have the so-called leeway, or even the kind of permit, if you like, or license to be a bit creative, to say something which can be a bit uncertain, for example. You are allowed to do that because people will see the uncertainty as a bit as an excuse for because this is art, right? So to me, in a way, it works for me. All right. But I have to put a certain limitation, a certain ceiling, if you like, to how far do I need to be creative when it comes to writing. I'll get back. I'll talk about that when we cross that particular bridge. So as I said to you before, when doing a self-appraisal, which is about the individual dynamics, you as a person, how do you see yourself? How do you recognize the dynamics within yourself? You as a person, either as a lecturer, as a human being, as a female, as a male, and so on and so on. Right? Maybe you have certain shortcomings and so on. So do an individual study yourself. Study the architecture of yourself. Look at yourself. We have architecture. You've got brains, you've got hands, you've got feet, you've got eyes and things like that. Look at yourself architecturally and also spiritually. Where do you stand? Right? So look at your own personal dynamics. Right? So I'm quite sure in that dynamics you were able to identify what you may not be very good at, as seen by you, maybe, seen by you. Right? So this is what we also what we call personal dynamics. Look at yourself, because personal dynamics is how you're able to, based on what you have or what you may have in little form or what you may not have at all, how you would adapt to the demands of the environment around you, to the demands of the people around you, for example. Look at yourself. Right? If you're a shy person, for example, how, because the environment requires you to be able for you to speak, but you are a shy person, so you must be able to identify how can I overcome this, because I'm for example, a very shy person. How do you need to overcome this? So personal dynamics should be able to tell you what kind of adaptation that you need to have, what kind of adjustment that you need to do to yourself, so that you no longer not to be seen a very shy person. Of course, there's still some elements of shyness in yourself, but that element of shyness that you see that you may have, right, may not hinder you from still being part of the greater environment that you are in, either teaching or practicing, for example. right? So look at your personal dynamics. How can you adopt? How can you adjust based on your shortcomings and based on what you have a strength to be able to live or to be able to work in any environment, just like any other one else, just like everyone else in that particular environment. All right. This is the so-called open secret. So what you have is going to be a contribution to yourself and also to other people. But what you don't have is something that you may not be able to do. So this is where you need to identify a group. You need to identify the dynamics of a particular group. So how do you go about doing this? So this is where you start associating yourself, identifying people, identifying their dynamics, identifying what are their shortcomings, identifying what are their strengths, for example, and start to interact with them. Bring them into your space, or you go into their space. Bring a few people into your space, or you yourself go into their space, or form a big space where all of you are part of that big space. And how do you interact? And how do you interact in a very dynamic way? So understand the dynamics. For example, if Jayden tends to be loud when he tends to be very, very passionate about what he does, for example, right? He's quite good with incisive criticism of other people's work. There's another person who's have a different way of doing things. He has something which Jayden hasn't got, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So look at the people around you that you can work with, for example. Very, very important. Remember, at the end of the day, guys, remember this. Remember, if you work on your own, even though you have all the faculties, right? You are smart, you're intelligent, and so on and so on. Remember, time is so short. Time is so short. For you to work on your own, you may be able to write, at least, this is my experience, you may be able to work on one paper. I'm talking about quality paper, you know. If you're able to write one paper, let's take you 2 months to do it. I'm quite sure Atia can also relate to this. You know, for it to be accepted, to be reviewed by the journal, probably takes you another 6 months. And even if they agree, it will take another 6 months for it to be published.
Yes.
Right? Once that is done, then you start working on the second paper. You know how many papers can you actually get published? Maybe 1 or 2 per year. But if you work in a group, you have a diversity approach to writing papers. People coming from different backgrounds, right? And I find this very, very successful, right? I'll show you how it works and who are the people who have formed this team that I've managed to put together, right? And what is the outcome of this dynamic working together between Osborne? I'll show you, right? So it's not just simply an academic exercise in terms of working dynamics in groups, but actually it is a meaningful, it is a purposeful, it is a very pragmatic approach to doing things, and also to achieve what you want to achieve when you are in the academic line or when you want to publish papers and so on, right? So that's what. So identify who are the people who can be part of that group that you want to work with, right? So team dynamics are created by the nature of the team's work. In other words, the personalities within that team is very, very important. The personalities, right? So their working relationship, you and the working relationship with the other members, with the other people, and the environment in which the team works, for example, right? And I'll show you how this team dynamics works in the group that I worked before. Sekarang the team that ada sekarang ni, the team that I work with, semua dah work in different institutes. Ada yang ke IUKL, other two went to US States, other one went to one university in Iran, one is dekat Bahrain. Ada seorang saja kat sini, right? So the team in a way has split up already, but our relationship is still there, you know, it's still there. So in other words, my working group now has been separated. So I'm now working with one particular individual in that team. So we have the team dynamic 1 or 2 people only, as opposed to before 4 or 5. Right? I'll show you later on. Right?
Wow.
Okay. Now I've shown to you how this to me is a very tangible evidence as to how that team dynamics have allowed me to produce what I need to produce. And these acknowledgements has been a way could be say probably as to why, you know, I managed to be where I am. But in a way, it started off rather timidly. When I got my PhD, when I came back to UTM teaching, my focus was entirely about teaching. No concern at all about doing research, even publishing papers. There was no spirit. There was no motivation at all, because I was still interested in teaching, because that was my passion. That was my passion the day first time I came, and it's still going to be a passion until I got my PhD. But I was introduced, I was given the opportunity to, UTM given an opportunity for those who come back to their PhD, they are given almost free 10,000 ringgit to do a research, right? 10,000 is not much, right? But it's a starting point. So there was one student who I was teaching at that particular time in the Master's Urban Design by the name of Arizu Shafak, Iranian student. She came and see me. They called me Prof at that time, even though I was just an ordinary doctor at that time. Prof, have you got any research to do? I'm willing to do that. And I said, yes, there is an allocation of 10,000 ringgit, but I'm not quite sure what to work on. And they said, what's your interest, Prof? I said, oh, something to do with people, and you know, and their environment. So I suggested to him, maybe she suggested to me, let's look at walkability in the neighborhood. Now, it doesn't sound very exciting, does it? Walkability in neighborhood. It's been done thousands of times everywhere around the world. So anyway, never mind, because to me, it was an opportunity. So we started off something rather lamely, if you like, working on a 10,000 ringgit grant design. But you know what? Even though it was 10,000 ringgit, but the fact that the student that came to me after she graduated from her master's in urban design, she had greater picture as to where this is going to lead. So we produced papers, we presented papers and things like that. Even with 10,000 ringgit, you know what? From then on, I was given the opportunity to go to apply for FRGS. Grant. You know what? After just that design, the project, the grant that was given to me was very much a spin-off of the 10,000 ringgit grant that it was given. Right? So it snowballed. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I began to get people in who were interested along the lines of what I was working on, about walkability and walkability. You know what? At the end of the day, because you know, you'll be surprised by this. You know what this leads to? I was given an e-science grant, you know, a science grant, 500,000 ringgit. Even though it's on walkability, but we managed to come up with a proposal where at the end of the day, because you know what science, they want something that's tangible, something scientific, technological based. And we managed to do that. Right? And when I look back, for example, me for a person who does not believe or has no passion in actually doing research or writing or even do scientific research, but bringing someone in who had greater vision of what this thing can do, for example, has given me the opportunity or be able to be confident in myself, saying that, you know, start off with the first step and eventually you can do them. Right? So you can see the title here of the research project, walkability, pedestrian, walkability index, modern things, all this came about from the first step that I've taken, for example. Right? And actually all these papers, all this research has produced papers, you know. Right? And here I was given a 61st development of sidewalk design support, research done by government UTM. And then this e-science grant by Ministry of Ministry
of Higher Education.
Gave me 141,000 to work on this development sidewalk design support too. So it begins to evolve, snowball, and so on and so on. Right?
Yeah.
And because of this research project, we collectively managed to write papers based on this. So as you can see, what started off something which is very, very simple and very, very basic, for example, in terms of walkability, I managed to go into the scientific aspects, relate this into engineering, relate this into software design, relate this into environmental design, but all very much relating to walkability. Right? So in a way, I have kind of diverse my focus, which was already based on walkability, into something else. I bring engineers in, I bring software designers in, I bring people from the environmental science in, for example. And you know what? By taking this kind of approach, it has allowed me to be able to publish papers, not only one particular field of study, but in many. Engineering, I can submit my paper to engineers, software developments, environmental science, obviously, also in social science literature, right? So this how, because if you work on this on one particular discipline and not diversifying that particular focus, study, you'll be limited to just one particular type of journal, and you find you'll be struggling. to get your papers published, right? But if you diversify that basic knowledge, you can the opportunity to publish so many. You know what? When I have 4 or 5 people working on that same paper, but they come from different background, engineers, social science, environmental science, and so on and so on. We managed at one particular point at least 4 or 5 papers. Right? And these people are not just simply who are able to write, but people who are serious about their writing. And many a times, many of the papers were almost given the favorable acceptance by many of the journals at the very first instance. Of course, with some corrections here and there, and so on and so on. Right? So to me, this is a very important element in how you want to develop that group dynamics or identify that dynamic group for you to be able to work or for you to achieve the success or the acknowledgement of being a writer in many fields of the academic line or many fields of research around the world. You see, some of the people who were in this particular group, now they've gone to the other universities in US, in Bahrain, and also in Iran, for example. You know what? We are still getting in touch with each other. And the beauty of this is that this is another secret. I think everyone knows, especially in the academic line. If you have a paper published by 2 or 3 different people from different institutions, from different countries, for example, you know how the journal will look at the paper. Wow, they would say. Right? One from US, one from Bahrain, one from Iran, for example, and one from UTM Skudai. But the fact that my name is part of that, they will see, this is an interesting dynamic, for example, how they came to come up with this particular. That's the assumption they made. But lo and behold, usually that happens. So please work in a team. Get the right people to work with you. Get the right people to work for you as well. Because I was the lecturer, so obviously they work for me sometimes, right? And sometimes they also work with me as well. Things like that. You know, so this is very, very important, right? So research projects it could be one of the platform, that you could be looking at. Don't have to start big, but start something very, very small and minor, but let it grow. And eventually bring people in little by little better. Then you can see, wow, there's a lot more to pedestrianization, there's a lot more to walkability than just simply talking about people walking and so on. There's a lot more to that. Right? Right. And at the same time, I managed to kind of enhance my knowledge, if you like, about walkability by doing postdoctoral supervision. People have graduated with their PhD. They come back to me because I've got a research grant. So Dr. Arizu, again, this is Dr. Arizu I mentioned to you just now, that urban design student, master. She came back to me. So we work on walkability index, right, in 2013, and we managed to come up with this index model. Right, she came back to me, and it's Dr. Rahela, also from both of them from Iran. Dr. Rahela Rostami also was formerly a graduate of the urban design. She came back to me, and we worked on this particular research, effects of street purpose on preferred walking environment and route choice of pedestrians. So you can see how the walkability team is still being carried through, even after they left, or when they continue with me as a postdoc student, and so on and so on. Right. So you see, I'm pushing the boundaries as far as I can, right, on this idea, on this concept, or the philosophy of what walkability or pedestrianism is all about, right? But still interjecting or putting different dimensions to the study by looking at environmental science, and looking at software design, by looking at so many things for engineering as well, right? Of course, on my part, looking at the environmental psychological aspects of walking and pedestrianization, for example. You see how the multidimensional way I've managed to relate to the study about walking and pedestrianization, right? Because it allows me the diversity to be able to have this or the opportunity to have my papers published in so many ways and in so many in many journals. Yeah. Right. So, and apart from that, my way, or the opportunity that was given to me as a supervisor, as a reviewer, I reviewed a few papers, international papers, apart from, you know what, surprisingly, I have not yet actually received any reviewing invitation from Malaysia. I don't know why, but from overseas, a few. In fact, I have to reject a few actually, right? and sharing viva voce proposal defenses locally and also internationally, and examiners locally and also internationally, right? And evaluating grants for research works. To me, all these kind of things to me is an acknowledgement as to what I am, for example, or what they see me as an academician, as a researcher, and also as a writer, right? To me, but I also see this, all these myriads of responsibility that they've given to me, right, as an opportunity to actually expand, my thoughts, how to look at design, how to look at papers, how to look at philosophy, how to look at concepts, how to look at so many things, right? By supervising people, either locally or internationally, by reviewing other people's work, it also informs me as to what I can do with what I have already, right? And so on and so on. So to me, being able to be given the opportunity to do all this myriad of responsibility is also something that you should be looking at. Right? Don't just simply restrict yourself to being supervising and also examining, but look at other things as well, because they can actually be inform you either in a very subtle way, obvious way, or indirect way that you will have to enhance what you already have, or make up for what you may not have or little have, or little that you have, for example. It's very, very important. So get involved, right, in a variety of academic research way, right? So so this is the recognition. I hate to put this one up, but like I said, I'm doing this with a lot of modesty, right? Because to me, the recognition that you see here is not recognition of me alone, but it's recognition of the work itself. Of course, everyone else should get credit in the group, but to me, this is a collective recognition, right? So we were acknowledged. We were given acknowledged based on best paper award, behavioral studies. This was presented based on the walkability study. And then a gold medal in the PODEX, for example, the PODEX development from the Malaysian Highway Authority, right? The paper that we presented, right? And then gold medal for in Seoul International Invention Award. We got a gold medal for that. And I also was awarded the so-called, at that particular time, I was a bit surprised actually, because the people in that group actually put my name up. I was also awarded the World Scientist Award in 2016. By the Korean Invention News. I was surprised, and I got the medal here with me somewhere. Somewhere. Right? And I also given the bronze medal. This was given to me when I worked with someone else, actually, not this group, about outdoor learning environment for educational establishment at the 2000 Pencipta. We managed to actually put up a book based on this conducive learning environment for universities. I did this with Professor Suhana Samsudin. She's now retired, right? So to me, if I think this is very, very tangible and very obvious that you can see that in a way this is an acknowledgement or the output or the recognition that what I as Jane, for example, has gone through, for example, and to me it's a recognition, right? As I said, I'm not putting this up to gloat or to be proud of, but to show to you that what I've just said just now, at the end of the day, it can be achievable objectively. You can do that. But as I said, don't try to work alone, but try to work with other people and for other people. Okay? Now, these are the people that I worked with and still working with. Right? So the one, Dr. Adib, he is a Yemeni or from Yemen. He's now got a job as a lecturer, assistant professor in Kingdom University in Bahrain, and we still get in touch. Last week I had a chat with him. Right? So he was a person who was very good with environmental science, very good environmental science. Right? So, but I and he managed to somehow contextualize my familiarity with pedestrianization and walkability with his high knowledge on environmental science. Right? You see how I managed to diverse what seems to be an ordinary study on walkability and pedestrian to something along the lines of environmental science. Very serious. He's very good, excellent. Right? But one thing that he is not that good, excuse me, Dr. Adib, is that he's not very good at English with writing. Right? So this is where I come into the picture. So we managed to produce a few papers, and alhamdulillah, with Q2, Q3 papers as well. We managed to also apply for financial incentive based on the paper that we publish. Okay, when I get the money, we share between the two of us lah. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then the other one is Dr. Gulnosh Mantegi, an Iranian. She's now in IUKL. She's very good in her English, very, very hard worker, right? And also very, very good researcher. A very, very focused person, right? But somehow or other, when she came to me, when she did her PhD after graduating, and then she came to me and worked on one of my postdoc research, we managed to put up a few papers. Now her strength is also is on environmental science, environmental science. But her environmental science very much related to how the river in the city centers can affect the cooling comfort of people walking along the river or the city, right? So still very much environmental science, but I come in with my interest looking at how people walking along the river could also be influenced by what the water body of the river we did a study on Malacca can have an influence on the environmental or the temperature or heat aspects of the people of the city, and also on the heat comfort of people who are walking along the river as well in Sungai Melaka. So we managed also put out a few papers, but still based on pedestrianization, right? Still very much but on her part, I practically had very little to do because she's good in research, she's good in writing, and she's so on, right? But I came in as a person who is able to conceptualize the paper, what she wants to write on, or else she would just simply be writing a typical engineering or typical science paper and things like that, you know. So maybe not that interesting. Maybe it'll be interesting to the engineers and things like that. But I came in with a new concept, looking at those things that she's good at, but looking at from the perspective of pedestrians, for example, in terms of comfort and also their perception and so on and so on. Because comfort is not just simply, you see, I think most of you here would agree with me. You see, we're talking about cooling or heat comfort, for example, or cooling comfort or thermal comfort. It's not so much about the temperature, isn't it? Of course, if the temperature is extreme, yes. But sometimes it's the perception of heat that makes you feel uncomfortable. You know, you may agree or not agree with me, but to me, I and Dr. Ganesh, actually, we came up with this particular concept. It's not so much the temperature that makes you feel uncomfortable. It's about the perception of the heat that makes you feel uncomfortable. Of course, we're talking about the difference between 5 or 10 degrees. Of course, it's talking about temperature impact, but here perception impact. So we came up with that. Right? So this is one of the contributions that I and Dr. Ganesh have managed to put up in many of our papers. It's about the perception of heat that makes people feel uncomfortable, that rather than the actual big disparity between acceptable comfort temperature and extreme comfort temperature, for example. So we managed to come. So she's still now in IUKL, Infrastructure University, and we still managed to get in touch with other things like that. But now she's still busy with her own postgrad. She's now the head of the postgrad program in IUKL. Right. Okay. Another postgrad student, also my PhD student before, is Associate Professor Dr. Rahele Rostami. She's now in Izad University in Iran. Now she's very much into perceptual study, but in the context of heritage study, but perceptual study on heritage, right? So, but I came in with this, and how do we study? How do we evaluate people's sense of comfort in many of the heritage Islamic park in Iran? She did a study on that one. Right. So in a way, we both have a very similar interest on that part. But she's not. She's okay with her. But she's a very good, very good researcher, very hardworking as well. But not that quite good in terms of philosophizing or conceptualizing the paper or the study or even writing, for example. This is where I come in as well. That's why I was talking a lot about writing and things of which is which I think is one of my forte, if you like, right? So we managed to produce a few papers. And sekarang pun masih ada lagi the paper being published and things all that being recognized throughout the. Whenever I see email, for example, people are requesting for the full paper and so on and so on. So it's still happening, right? And then both on the right side, Dr. Arizul Shafagat and also Dr. These are husband and wife. Right?
Okay.
Kennesaw
Mhm.
University. So both of them, wow, they have made really big change in my life as being a researcher because both of them are very, very good. Wow. Because they both of them have actually worked with so many professors in the university and have managed to kind of put many of the universities, for example, that have worked with them, for example, in a very good light, a very, very good light, very, very high profile, including me. Well, I'm not that high profile, but acceptable profile, if you like. But both of them have done that. These people, they are so mad about working. They are so mad about research, so mad about writing papers. Nothing is impossible for them. You ask them to do something, okay, well, I will do it, Prof. When do you want it? If it's a 1 week job, I said 2 weeks, 1 day, I'll do it, Prof. That's how they are. So because, yes, but unfortunately they had to leave. So they were appointed as contract lecturers with the engineering department here. But after some time, because of the financial capacity of the university could no longer sustain the employability of many of the staff here, especially with regards to foreign staff. So both of them has to leave. So they went off to the United States, and I was very, very sad when both of them left because I treated both of them macam anak-anak saya tau. Because they're very senior. Most of kadang-kadang bila selepas mayang saya duduk dengan Dr. Ali dekat tangga masjid tu, we cried emotionally. You know, this true. We both of us cried, recalling of what we went through. You know, and then thinking that you are going to leave me, you are going to leave ETM. We know could no longer be working together again. Because they had a very strong impact on me being a researcher and also writer. So Dr. Ali is a very brilliant with the most truest definition is Dr. Ali. The wife also very, very brilliant. But both of them are a very good team. Right? In terms of this team here, Ali and Arizu has a very, very big impact on me. Right? So both of them are in fact when Arizu was there, when Arizu is still there, he managed to have me appointed as one of the editor in one of the universities there, in one of the journals, for example. Right? You see how the dynamic still happening now there. So he had managed to invite me, and I was approved to be one of the main editor for one of the big journals in the university in US and so on and so on. So this is how in a way, if you are able to get people that works with you, able to work for you, with you, for example, with diverse expertise, for example, you see the chances of you being able to shine, right? It's always there, you know. It's very, very good, right? And of course, last but not least is Dr. Solehin Fitri, UTM student. I taught him as an undergraduate, right? He also comes and see me a lot, so many times. He is one of the person yang he anggap sebagai anak angkat saya. We share so many things. We share so many things. So he has also helped me a lot. He was along the lines, his studies very much along the line of heritage, landscape, and also scenic evaluation, landscape scenic evaluation. So we work along those lines as well. Right? So that particular element, but very difficult to see the vocality of subject of my interest to be related to his work. But anyway, I still was able to bring him into the group, and he was able to do help me with other aspects apart from the work that he was working, or he has a very strong interest in, which is about scenic environmental scenic environment and so on and so on. Right. So all of them, all these 4, 5, 6 of them had a very big role in this team here. Right. So all of them have gone their separate ways now, but we still very much keep in touch. In fact, I had a chat with Dr. Adib about a week ago. He's now working on 1 or 2 papers already, right? Which he says is going to be part of me being part of that paper as well, right? So how and when I'm going to be involved is another matter, right? So you see how people of different background, people of different interests, people of different capacity, different people of different strength, or people of different shortcomings, if you like, we still manage to work together. You see, I haven't put my picture here to form a part of the team because I don't want to put my picture there because it could be construed as me being the center of this team. No. Yeah? If I put my picture in the center, watch it, then it's the team, it's the head. No. There's no such thing as that. I always see myself as part of the team rather than heading the team. Right? So in this case, you can see me in spirit in this in this particular slide here, rather than seeing my picture there. Right? But do not be fooled. I was still a strong part of that particular team, even though I haven't got my picture there. Right? In fact, I sent this particular picture to each and every one of them, and they were they were so honored and they were so what we say embarrassed. Prof, I mean, in fact, it's the other way around, Prof. We have learned a lot from you. They said to me. Of course, I think they were just being modest, right? In fact, I would have to agree, I have to say I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from them. I'm not being modest, but that's what I know, because they have managed to kind of put me in a position where I am now, and I really appreciate what they've done so far, right? And in fact, every one of them here are almost like my son and daughters.
Thank
Really.
you. I'm
You know?
longing to have my face also here in your slides, but inshallah there'll be one day.
Okay, insyaAllah. You know, cerita minta maaf saya bila nak menangis gini. You know,
Sure.
ada some of them even, you know, we cried when we come to certain wall. You know, we cannot, with certain obstacles when we do things. Some of them even talk about their private life, ada masalah apa semua. So we are one big family though. So that's why I see myself as the father though. That's why bila all of them when they go their separate ways, I feel very, very lonely. I feel very, very detached. But from Solia, I'm still here. He's next door. But the rest, for example, because you know why? Because they had a very big impact on me being what I am today. And as they may say, I had also a big impact on them. And to me, that's a very good dynamic, though. Very good ecological environment that I have set for them. But okay, let me admit, I was the person that behind this team here. Behind the team in terms of putting them together. Right? And identifying what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their shortcomings are. This is why I say identifying my weaknesses, doing my self-appraisal, identifying and doing appraisal of each and every one of them. So that how can I put them together? Right. So me as the so-called the older person in this team is where I come and put them, see how we can work together, or where they can work among themselves, even with my absence in the team. And to me, the acknowledgement that I mentioned to you just now with regards to the awards, the paper saya tak tunjuk saya tak tunjuk banyak benda tu. I don't tunjuk nanti apa sangat panjang masa. You can go to my CV. I think you want to look at my CV. I think it's there somewhere online. You can look at that one. So many papers that one. All right. So at the end of the day, what the team should have is shared purpose, trust and openness, willingness to correct mistakes, right? Willingness to say mistakes, diversity, inclusion, do not be exclusive, but inclusive, learn to respect each other, interdependence and sense of belonging to that team, consensus decision making. Don't make decision on your own, but get a consensus so that at least they can see they are being being given the opportunity to have their say and also to decide. Right, and also participative leadership. This is what very important for me. How I lead, but in the sense of participating, getting people to lead. Right, even though I'm the older person who could have the final say, but I don't take that position. I still would say if a good point that they said, I would agree. Okay, let's agree with that one. With what Arizul has mentioned, let's go with that one. Right, even though I'm a leader, I would still agree with it. So this is what I mean by participative leadership. No one is a leader. Everyone is a leader. Okay. Right. So in other words, this is very obvious. So in other words, we see ourselves as working to in a way trying to conceptualize, if you like, or try to philosophize this working dynamic as a yin and yang. I'm quite sure everyone knows about this, right? See what's so beautiful about this particular yin and yang. If you look at the black and white spots, right? You see the black spots belong to the black bigger arch, right? Bigger frame, and the white belongs to the bigger arch or the bigger frame. This means what you have in yourself, actually, right, is also what other people has in them. Right? So do not see yourself being exclusive, but being inclusive. Right? So for example, if I belong to that black patch, for example, that's me. Right? But what I have, for example, right, can also be in others, in that white spot. So this is very harmonious interaction between us is very, very much evident in that particular group. Right? As you all know that in yin and yang, it's not about juxtaposition of two elements, but it's the harmony of two elements. Betul tak, Atia?
Betul, setuju. Yeah.
Yes, juxtaposition is two things opposite, but putting it that way, it's still in contrast. They're still not interacting. But with yin and yang, they are contrast by nature, but they are harmoniously interactive. That's why it's like that rather than that way. Right? So this is how I would translate the dynamics of the team that has worked to me before some time back. Okay. So what happens after that? Or what happened during the course of that? See, from what started off of looking at the field of study from environmental psychology, which is what I'm most familiar with. I hate to use the word expert, I've always feel people say you're expert. I said, no, I'm not an expert. I'm a person who has a very strong familiarity with the particular subject as opposed to expert. So maybe something that all of you can learn here. People call you expert. No, I'm not an expert. I'm a person who has a very strong familiarity or high degree of familiarity with a particular subject. In a way, it's like equivalent to being an expert. But I think, and to put it modestly, say it that way. Okay, to be recognized as an expert can be, can work against you one day. And then from environmental psychology, I've evolved my interest, or the group has evolved into environmental science. So this is another field of study. Right? And then with the coming of Dr. Ali Kevanfa, we managed also to bring or evolve what start from environmental psychology to environmental science into science technology. He's very good with engineering. He's also very good software development. Right? But still very much based on the environmental psychology platform that we worked initially. We evolved through it. So you can see now, for example, we managed to go into these three fields, but still starting off with the first basic study on walkability and pedestrianization. We managed to go into this. So this, to me, when you got a diverse team, you're able to have a diverse field of study, but still very much focusing and referencing to the original starting point of your study, which is what walkability and pedestrianization. So again, this is another thing. This is how I think I would put in a nutshell, for example, how I have evolved from my area of familiarity from environmental psychology to environmental science and technology. Can you imagine me doing walkability, for example, just looking at environmental psychology and asking for e-science grant? I don't think my chance of getting is very difficult, very difficult. But environmental science and technology together with pedestrianization, wow, then they can say, yeah, there's something there. Because they want to see the word there, science, they want to see the word there, technology. Then you can put anything to that, walkability or whatever, that they want to see that. And that's how we managed to get the grant for that research. So just to kind of coming back more or less to the end of the talk or of the chat here, academic writing is clear, concise, focused, structured, and backed up by evidence. Of course, we have to have that. Its purpose is to aid the readers to understand. It has a formal tone. This is something which I tend to struggle a bit. As I said before, I tend to have a very cavalier approach to writing, for example. But in academic writing, you need to have a formal tone and style, right? It is not complex and does not require the use of long sentences and complicated vocabulary, which I also have to do that as well. But when I come to writing paper, I have to put myself, no. This is not writing a story. This is writing a paper. So I have to rather write things in rather short sentences and try to read and try to, as much as possible, do away with big jargons, in writing. Each subject discipline will have certain writing conventions. Of course, if you are writing science, certain convention needs to be adhered to. Environmental science, science technology, environmental psychology. There are certain conventions which you need to follow or at least refer to when you write the paper. Vocabulary as well and types of discourse. You will become familiar with the course of your degree or what you are good at. For example, eventually you will be able to do that. This was taken from Leeds University postgraduate school. Right. So I think this is something which I think all of you know already. But I said myself, I'll just explain very little on just few on this dimension of what academic writing is all. That's why I'm not talking about, this talk is not about writing paper, but how you could go about writing successful papers and publish. So in terms of academic writing, it could be a form of inquiry, it could be a form of evaluation, it could be a form of exploration, and a form of benchmarking. So I've got all the papers as many in a way has more or less addressed all these four premises, right? So you can pick any one you like, right? So, but to me, this is the bottom line. Either what you say, either what you design, either what you write, right, or either what you put forward, that the underlying element, the underlying premise, the underlying factor, the underlying issue that you should have that props up whatever you do is intellectuality. There must be something in there, either tangibly or intangibly, the elements of intellectualization in the work itself, intellectuality. Right? In other words, you must be able to write in a very intellectual way. The whole component of writing should have an intellectual character. Not only the content. Right? So this must be able to be. You must be able to do that, right? So this requires a bit of art. You know what? I always believe, and this is my stance. Of course, when you write, you must be able to have something to talk about. There must be data, and things like that. But at the end of the day, you should know when you are presenting, when you are submitting a paper, you're submitting a paper to people, human beings. They have emotion, they have sentiments, and things like that. So if you are able to impress them with the way you write, which gives an impression of intellectuality, even though the content may not actually be contributing in a very high way, the intellectual paper, they tend to, okay, I think it's there. So they will still be able to look at your work favorably. Right? However, if your content or data, for example, is evidently as of high intellectual content, but if the writing is not that good, they could push it aside, They could push it aside. Because why? Those are very, very obvious and objective elements in the writing, the data and things like that. Right? But with writing, it's very subjective. But the subjectivity nature of the writing could sway in your favor if it's written in a very, very intellectual way, even though the content may not be of intellectual quality. Right. So this is another secret. You know why? Because I've reviewed so many papers. This is, and I've read how other people have reviewed the same paper which I've reviewed, and this is how I observe. Right? They tend to be swayed by the way of writing as opposed to the content. Now, of course, the content has got to be there must be some element of quality in it, but the writing has to be there as well. And so please do not ignore this particular element or this particular idea or this particular concept of intellectualizing what you do, what you say, what you write, or what you design. Right? Do not. Right? So writing a classy way to sound smart means writing to sound like maybe even to a certain person, you're a certain kind of person. Sociologists and other scholars do that because they think or hope that being the right kind of person will persuade others to accept what they say as a perceived social science argument. This is coming back to my earlier slide just now. The first impression is very, very important. Right? If you're able to give the impression that you are the person that people should listen to, then what comes after that? Even though you may sound silly in the next paper or so, for example, but because you are a person who has established yourself, right, based on the 1 or 2 papers you have submitted earlier, before, then they will still in a way look in favor of what you submitted after that. Sometimes I do get a bit annoyed, another person at that time maybe of course I was not a professor. I was just just graduated with a PhD. I said something, for example, in a meeting, because I'm not a professor, I'm not a social professor. Yes, okay, thank you, Dr. Hasanuddin, things like that. But you know what annoys me, what gets me, is that another person who is a professor says a similar thing, and he got recognized, and he said, "Oh my God!" He just said what I just said just now, but he says in a different way, paraphrasing, restructuring, and something. But was saying more or less the same idea, and he was looked up. And I said, "Oh God!" You see, but why? Because he's that, and that is why. Well, of course, we are talking about him being, but you as a writer, right? Maybe whether you're a professor or not, maybe would not sway the person to accept your paper or not when they decide your paper to be published or not. But because the way you write, for example, the impact that you make, for example, is very, very important. Right? So please make sure you start on the right foot. Be very, very careful about that. I started on the wrong foot, but fortunately, it was not submitted to a very well-known journal. It was only Faculty Alam Bina journal. So I'm all right. So I'm all right. So they cannot use that as a gauge of who Hasanuddin or what kind of person he is or what kind of writer he is. He was there. To be honest, I'm embarrassed about that actually. But after that, I alhamdulillah, I learned from that. I managed to hopefully did something a bit better than that. Right. So attributes of a good paper is content, character, and content and character. Content, character, and content and character. I'll talk about that also just now. Right. So often feeble minds with mediocre arguments hide behind obscure and convoluted language. Sometimes people tend to hide what they're not good at by using big words, right? You simply must be careful not to confuse complexity with rigor. So people tend to say, people when they do something complex, for example, they thought it was rigor. When I share certain proposal defenses, for example, many students tend to look at the very complex picture of what they want to do and thinking that the complexity of what they do could actually qualify them to do what they want to do, and that could also be equated to rigor in research. I said no. Right? Simplicity, the subject can be very simple, but how you look at the subject can actually be the reason as to how complex that particular thing could be. So start with something simple, don't start with something very, very complex. And people tend to do that. So let's not get on the wrong foot. Right? So the end game, writing teaches commitment and build characters. Yes, it has built character. I think in a way, it has built me into a certain character. What character is, I don't know. I don't know what you want to say about me. Writing allows me to develop my skills as well, my craft. Right? Or skills which I don't think I have, or skills which I don't think I could be able to develop. But writing has helped me. But when I say writing, I'm writing this together with others, not alone. Writing has been also it's also very, very important as well. It is in a way to see, okay, Hasanuddin, you've written so many papers, you have reviewed so many papers, you chat so many papers, examined so many papers. So where do you actually stand? So we want to not that we want to boast or gloat about the position, but we want to know, have I done for the past 10 to 20 years, be something that's worthwhile doing it. So to me, writing could be a very good case, could be a good yardstick, could be a good benchmark as to where you are now. And to me, alhamdulillah, with what I've done so far in terms of writing, for example, you see, I've never believed, or not saying I believe, it's not a belief, but I'm a bit shy actually in trying to promote myself. I'm very shy, until now. I know some people, when they do something, they put on their Facebook, they put on it everywhere, and they are well known throughout the whole place, everywhere. But I'm not that kind of person. I let someone else find about it rather than me letting them know. But alhamdulillah, I think in a way, as you probably know that, action speaks louder. What you do speaks louder, and alhamdulillah, I have managed to do that. I've managed to be able to put myself in a certain position to be able to see people that Hasanuddin did something. And as I said to you just now during the start of the session, during the day, by coincidence, of course, God willing, ITM telefon saya atau kata, Prof Hasanuddin, boleh tak panggilkan saya? I don't even know. I said, how the hell do you know me? Maybe it's funny for somewhere else. I do not know. Someone, of course, I could go for many talking engagement anywhere around the world if I know how to promote myself. But I'm very shy about that. I still feel very much. I still have a lot to learn. So I think that's very much all. Atia, and also to everyone. So kalau ada apa-apa yang terkasar atau apa tu, saya minta maaf ya. Tujuan saya itu bukanlah untuk menunjukkan diri saya untuk magnet. Saya tidak langsung. Ini adalah semuanya, saya always believe that apa yang saya dapatin adalah urusan Allah. Ini adalah rezeki Allah bagi pada saya. Kekurangan saya itu Allah bagi, kelebihan itu Allah bagi pada saya. So jangan saya jangan ambil hati sangat ya kalau saya cakap. Tujuannya adalah saya nak share with every one of you. Because tujuan saya lah, hopefully if you can learn something from this, it can be an inspiration and motivation, or could be a reason, it could be an excuse for you to do something better than what you are now, or even better than what I am now. Inshallah. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prof Hasanuddin, I think you know what, I believe most of us here, we are willing to pin up ourselves on our chair rather than going even to the toilet, listening to your narrative from the beginning. We start at 10 o'clock until now. So there's so many things that we learn through your story, through your journey, really inspires us. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, let us just recap a little bit. We started the talk this morning by Prof. Lansat Kitab Dr. Hasanuddin shared with us his very beautiful memories with his parents, and I believe that's already pinned us with him. I've never seen that picture so far. I've been graduating from UTM, I think, for more than 30 years. This was my first time looking at it, and it's very precious.
This is only privy to my siblings, and even my closest friend doesn't have this picture. But because I want to me, because I feel, if only my parents were alive, I think they will be very proud of me, be able to share this with you on this particular platform, and to have their picture to be shared by many people who are observing this, for example. So this is one of the reasons, because again, I said to you before, this is a personal nature of my presentation today. So they said, okay, let's personalize it by actually starting off by having my picture of my parents there also with me. at their feet.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And
All
I
right.
think that's even with the starting of the picture, it's already something that we can learn from Prof. How really he brought all of us here. Some of us are family from UTM, his students, but some are new. We all believe. But at the end of this presentation, at the end of his presentation, we all feel like we are his family. And of course, looking at the slides with the group, Prof is working now. So how we thought that we could be part of the slides, but maybe inshallah. But no matter
Inshallah,
what,
you-
we're very happy and very inspired with what you have done. Okay. So I think I would like to now open our session to our audience today with Q&A. So remember that today is a narrative, something that is very informal. So don't be shy to ask questions or to share your experience, whatever things that you, because this narrative session is a bit different from the rest of what Bina we're talking about or we have been listening. And Prof. Hasanuddin is someone that is very dear to us, most of us. And for even we have our students from UPM here, Prof. They are also from international, but I feel that they are very close to you by now. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, yeah, we open the question and answer session to Prof. From audience that we have today. Over to you. Anyone?
Yeah, Prof. Shirin here. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Shirin.
I have one question.
Hmm.
First of all, I think you peminat Liverpool FC ke?
Yes, die hard.
Sebab dia
My
punya
whole family
tagline
and my whole siblings.
you kata we never walk alone kan?
Walk alone, yeah.
So okay, that's a good advice. Anyway, my
Ah.
question is that it's been in my mind because in your years of teaching, I mean, just now you were saying about it's good to be able to speak English and all that. How do you handle if, for instance, right now UPM has been having a lot of application from China postgraduate, yeah? So how do you handle students who can't even speak English? You know, because especially they can't even speak. How do you
Yeah.
speak with them? How do you, you know, I think most of us are having that because so many students now and they have a fantastic proposal. I think maybe they have somebody prepared it for them, but when it comes to real discussion, you can't even speak with them. Yeah, thanks.
Right. So, two things I'd like to raise here. One is what's your judgment criteria? What is your judgment criteria for a PhD student? Is it about them? Is it about their intellectuality, capacity, or is it about their language?
For me, when we have a PhD student, it's mostly I do not want to feed them. I want them to think. They have to bring out the idea, you know. So because that's why I feel that the conversation is very important. We want to tap into their mind. You know, it's not just having produced a PhD. It's more about the mind. But when you can't discuss, you can, you know, it's a two-way conversation. How do you do it?
I have many students like this. Many. You know what? I always believe, you know, this is again, maybe I'm not saying that I know this a lot. Maybe I practiced before. Maybe other of the senior people in this group also have practiced before. You know, I've always tell them at the end of the day, we are going to work together on this. Your failure is my failure. Right. So in other words, any decision that we are going to make, we are going to decide this as two individuals talking about the same issue, talking about the same objective. Objective means you want to graduate, we want to learn something from it. So I always have this kind of social interaction with them, right? In other words, we allow them to do what they want. Right? I say, okay, let's say one Chinese guy, Nama Akong, whatever it is. Okay, this is what generally he wants to do. I said, okay, go and do some reading, for example. Of course, you give some certain indication as to what he needs to read, what he needs to be reading about, and things like that. Ask them to go read. Of course, you're going to come back. Either they're going to completely be confused or baffled, or they're going to be totally be very informed to talk about something else. But either way, let them come for a second trip. Then start engaging, start evaluating what have they actually learned from our first conversation, from our first meeting. Then from that, you can be able to give that, okay, he seems to be a person who's not able to do research. You don't even know what research is all about. This is where you have to take a step forward, go almost virtually into his space, his thinking space. In other words, to a point, to a point of even narrowing what he wants, what he should be doing. But remember, don't impose yourself on him or her. No. Because we want to give the impression to him that that decision that I, in a way, has actually wanted him to do, in actual fact, imposing, but we don't give the impression that we are imposing upon him. But he, on his side, for example, he said, Dr. Hassanuddin is suggesting it to me, and I'm thinking about it, and I will come up with this particular topic. So he will get the impression that actually he's the person who decided it. But in actual fact, tak secara langsung, saya senang bagi idea tu. But we don't give that impression to them. So that, you know what, once he has that, he feels that he was given a certain sense of empowerment, to make a decision. At the very start of what he wants to, as a general area of study, not a topic belum lagi. It'll take 1 year to do that, right? But as a general area of study, then we allow that. So from then on, once you agree with that, then you can start informing him how to go about doing things, how to read, what to read. How do you want to read what you want to read? How do you want to interpret what you want to read? I will go to the details. But first and foremost is giving him a sense of empowerment about decision making or what he wants to do. And always say to him that this is our work. Your failure is mine, also is going to be my failure. And be very, very honest with him as well. Shurin.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially, this is another dimension now. This is another dimension. You see, creating a certain sense of affinity with the students is very, very important. I think most of you almost had a PhD. PhD is a very, very long, lonely journey.
Yeah.
Long journey, especially of those who have got their experiences overseas. You got no parents, you got hardly any friends to talk to, for example. I know that. I know some people, they feel almost sometimes even suicidal. Gaduh sama keluarga, beragus and things like that. Almost marriage breakups are always there. But
Yeah.
to me, so please take on also this role. How do you want to guide the student so that he is always on the right track? So what he does in terms of what his frame of mind is very, very important. Almost to a point, you almost could be playing a father figure role or a brother figure role, depending how old he is.
Yeah. I think my second option is to take Mandarin. If they can't understand me, I have to understand.
Even to that point,
Yeah.
they can't speak English. They don't understand English.
No, not at all, Prof. How can we relay and they cannot relay back to us? So that's my question.
To be honest, if I were to be in your position, I would still be perplexed as to what I would do. I would come to a blank wall, really. The very least, you can't speak English very well. The very least, I understand what I say. There's no point. It's like you're talking ayam to a kambing.
Yeah. There's a situation that I'm asking. That's the problem. So the next one, so Mandarin it is. I have to take Mandarin.
Oh. Well, see it's an opportunity, Shurin. You're forced to learn Mandarin now.
Yeah.
But Shurin, but you still cannot actually gauge his intellectual capacity, can't you? You cannot do that, isn't it? I mean, you're not able to do that. For all we know, after several interactions with him, after he understands English or you understand Mandarin, lo and behold, you say, wow, this is a very intelligent person. You never know. You never know, right? So be very careful. So if you have a good relationship with him, wow, you know what? You ask him to do one, he'll do two. You ask him to write 4 papers, write 8 papers.
Yes.
You want him to be left, he write papers for you again. Because the relationship you have. Because why? He has the intellectual capacity, and that continuity of relationship with him happened because you had a relationship with him.
Okay.
Thanks,
Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay.
And thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Shurin, for the question. And I think it's part of diversity for us being a teacher to be with all students from the globe, and with different backgrounds and whatnot. So when I look at your slides, Prof, so that's also, inshallah, is going to be part of our journey to be with them. The China student and many more others from other parts of the country. So it's part of our, later on, inshallah, going to be our journal.
Can I just add a little story? This has to be our little secret. He came to a point tau. Ini siapa ni yang ni yang senyum-senyum kat saya ni? Ini yang user ni. Siapa ni yang pakai spek ni? Ini siapa ni? Tak dengar.
Hashim maybe.
Ha?
Hashim,
Dia ke?
Hashim, you have to
Oh.
unmute
Okay. No,
yourself,
okay.
Hashim.
Bos Hashim.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay, Shurin. This goes to everyone, yeah. It all depends on you as a person who has a certain responsibility, tau. Of course, what I'm suggesting to you is that we are not compromising the philosophy of teaching, supervising, and doing research. No, right? I had one or two cases. Ini saya cakap ni, tapi saya tak nama student. I think some friends yang dapat tahu lah. He came to a point. I know he's intelligent. He doesn't write well. He knows how to do research, but he doesn't know how to structure research, how to write thesis and things like that, how to write paper. You know, it came to a point that he sent me his draft to me. He was all over the place. I was not willing to sign that, saying that it's submissible for PhD Viva. No way. Especially people who say, Hasanuddin cakap bahasa Inggeris, tapi tengok student dia macam ni. So there's no way. There was only 2 weeks left before the date of submission. He was from Iran. But most of my close friends knows he's a very intelligent person on urban design. He was working on urban design. And I said, I'm not going to allow his inability to write to be his fall down or not getting his PhD. I'm quite sure if he were to do this same paper, this study in Iran, no problem. Flying colors. But he did, because he came to Malaysia, he had to write this English. English pun cakap macam pertama juga. So the other day, I had to I said, bite the bullet. I said to him, okay, tak sebut nama. He said, maksud saya bilik kecil, maksud saya doktor biasa je. He's one of my earlier, I think my second PhD student. You bring your soft copy to me, right? You sit by the door, and you sit there. I download dia punya apa dah tu? You know, I literally had to from page 1 type everything.
Subhanallah.
Sampai habis. Ini minta air ni semua. Tapi nampak, tapi bagi saya lah, I believe I'm not doing the wrong thing or neither the right thing. But because I still believe that he deserves it. Because he's smart, memang intelligent. Profesor kat sini ada 2-3 orang ya. Profesor Syed Edi, dia tak ada pension ni, mungkin Atia ingat je dah. Memang recognize, dia memang hebat dia. Theory, background reading memang hebat. Memang kita wow. Tapi not able to write. So this is where I come and play. I say that he's only got 2 weeks left. No way. So I did everything for him. And Alhamdulillah he managed to get his PhD. Sampai sekarang, Atia, everyone, dia masih lagi get in touch with me.
Subhanallah.
Sebenarnya saya tak minta apa-apa pun. Tapi because he feel that apa tu. He said
That's a true love. Yeah, that's a true love of a teacher. And we
whether love, I don't know, but I just feel that, you know, I have to appreciate and acknowledge that dia sebenarnya orang pandai. I don't like, you know, tapi but I say it's not that wrong. You know why? I got some friends. I know in Sheffield masa belajar dulu. Oh, yang dia terap. Oh, ya Pak Arab ni. Hancur. But they got their PhD. You know what? Apart from getting ghost writers, they have someone else to write for them. Tapi sebenarnya dia smart. Dia buat PhD. Bila dia masa tu saya belum habis lagi, dia habis. He came to my room and said, wow, Hasanuddin, I got through. Tapi he's now working in Saudi, he's still doing very, very well. Of course, doing things in Arabic lah kan. But to me, as long as dia punya intellectual capacity is there, I think let's not have language as a barrier lah bagi saya.
I guess, I guess we have to be creative when being a lecturer, how to get through to the students.
Creative, satu. Resourceful is another. If you're not creative, tak apa, but be resourceful lah. Be resourceful and be adaptive. Hashim.
Very inspiring, Hashim, you have any questions?
Hashim, go free.
Come on, Hashim.
Hashim.
Do you have any? Hashim, you have to unmute yourself because we can't hear you. If I can help you, is it possible? Wait. Okay, I will unmute all.
Masuk Hashim.
Okay. Boleh pula How is it?
Tak boleh ambil. Ada butang buat mute bawah, tak nampak? Butang mic belah kiri sekali. Ada macam microphone.
Unmute all. I've already unmute all. But then doesn't work. It's
Tak dengar,
not
tak dengar.
working.
Mungkin mic dia kot. Mic dia lah. Mungkin mic dia
Oh
issue kot.
yeah, might be. Yes.
Dia issue dia.
So
Minta maaf lah, Hashim.
Hashim, yeah, sorry for that.
Tak dengar
Yes.
suara kamu. Kamu dah dengar suara kamu. Tak dengar.
But we can see you smiling. I'm
Atau
very
kita tulis ke
happy.
ataupun someone else meantime ke?
Yeah. Any other questions while waiting for Hashim to sort his things over the computer? So any questions? We have also PhD students here who might want
PhD
to
students,
say
I'd like to hear
Yeah.
from your side.
Yes. You want to share your
Siapa dia?
journey? Yes, over to you.
I can have a talk on just simply on my PhD journey. Wow, that's another story. Exciting story. Maybe in some other time lah. Wow. Bagi saya kan, it could be an inspiration to many of you. How delightful, how pleasurable, how to a point, how quite easy to do PhD. Ada cara dia.
See?
Ada cara dia
See?
sebenarnya. Ada cara dia.
So, Dr. Yazid, we should be planning for another talk with Professor.
InsyaAllah, boleh.
Dr.
Kalau nak
Hassan.
boleh.
Boleh,
Yeah.
insyaAllah.
Boleh.
Okay.
So that would be great. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, just to apa tu? Sebab at the end of the day, it's not about doing PhD tau, but how do you manage your working with PhD? That's a key point of the apa tu. Very, very important sebenarnya. Saya dah, to cut the story short kan, saya boleh habis dalam masa 3 tahun tau, my PhD. Boleh buat. Tapi saya relax. Sebab apa saya punya scholarship can allow me to go to 4 years. Saya relax, je buat kerja-kerja. But very much in control of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But how actually I could do in 3 years? Ada cara-cara dia nanti besok.
That would be good. Yeah.
Ya, InsyaAllah. Okay,
Another
siapa nak tanya?
inspiring story from Prof. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
Assalamualaikum Dr. Atia.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Assalamualaikum Prof. Yeah,
Waalaikumsalam.
Prof, thank you very much for inspiring us on your talk. Yeah, very inspiring sharing.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. I think I don't know whether you remember me. I'm the one ex-student of you in 1998. You aware
Familiar.
that you teach me
Familiar, tapi nama tak ada.
during that time you teach me elective landscape architecture for the architecture students.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And, you inspired me a lot. I changed my decision from architecture to landscape architecture, and then I went for bachelor. Thank you very much. I'm using this platform to thank you very much. You inspired
Thank
me
you
a
very
lot.
much. Nice to see you again. Right. No wonder the face looks familiar, especially the smile.
Yeah.
Tanya. Okay, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Prof, I have a
Yeah.
question. I'm so inspired with you. How you drive yourself from the social science to science and technology, and then you have your own team. Yeah. And what if I were to see your team, you are the one who from social science.
Yes.
This is from engineering and also science and technology.
Yeah, very much. Social, but very much into environmental psychology. My part.
Yeah.
Environmental
I
behavior,
think my area as well is same with you. I don't know that, but today I'm aware that you are the one who maybe my idol on terms of this kind of this kind of area. Okay. Okay. And then my question is that there's a lot of argument where sometimes people say that you don't have to do a paper or write a paper. You can write a paper without a grant. So, without a grant. Any comment from you? Do we need a grant in order for us to write a paper? So that is yeah.
Fine. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. You remember one of my slides, for example, the various types of paper, for example, inquiry, exploration, and things like that. Right. So yes, you can do that, depending on what kind of paper you want to write. If you're writing a paper based on a certain data or certain issue, for example, that require data, obviously you need to have data. So data you have to have people to do it for you. You have to have for traveling by pen. So in other words, you need to have a grant as well. But one thing, but be very careful, ya, Fairuz. This is very important, especially kita semua nak isi KPI kan, nak dipanggil dan sebagainya kan.
Yes.
Kalau you buat paper, katalah paper tu bagus apa semua tu kan, you cuma dapat satu mark saja tau. Tapi dari segi markah untuk paper, untuk grant, you tak dapat.
Yeah.
Especially kalau grant you is e-science punya grant ke, ataupun grant which is a very high punya value ke ataupun grant daripada international punya body ke, ini value tau, apart from the paper. Paper you dapat 1 markah saja, atau whatever paper you want. Tapi ada elemen-elemen lain lagi tau. Kata paper itu, katalah paper, the grant you get is for example local, FRG dan sebagainya. So ada markah. Kata paper you write is another markah. Tapi kalau paper tu, kalau macam you work with someone else dekat ada universiti kat Malaysia, dah lain markah dia. Atau paper tu write, you buat dengan universiti kat luar negara, dah lain markah dia juga. So you should see that. So do not deflect from the greater picture tau, of what you want to do tu. Always try to see, this is why I said by being resourceful. Tak be creative pun lah. Be resourceful. Now I've got this. I got the paper that I want to write. Now what else can I do with this? Itu jaga dia. Itu penting. That's why kadang-kadang kita kena be a bit resourceful ataupun kreatif tau. Bila kita dapat satu benda tu. Single stick, satu kayu tu boleh macam mana guna. Kita selalu guna kayu ni, kita buat apa? Kita kuit telinga ke, sudut lubang. Tapi kalau orang yang berfikir betul, banyak boleh buatnya sebenarnya. Dengan syarat dia apply himself of what this stick can do. That's right. To me, when you look at the 3 elements, that 3 field study macam environmental science, environmental psychology, environmental science dengan psychology tu. To me, this is another keyword. I always tell to all my students, also to siapa-siapa yang pernah dipanggil dan sebagainya, is try to contextualize your work, try to contextualize your finding other than the context that you're working on. Jangan dia punya konteks tu pendek sangat tu. Cuba langkah lebih. In other words, sebab sebab chances are if you were to have a certain result of finding based on the context that you're working, for example, chances are people tend to say, yes, so what? Atau say, I've done it before. But if you take it out of that small context or put in a different context or put in a greater context, I say, tak fikir pun pedestrian kayak boleh macam ni. Saya kan, pedestrianization kan, boleh buat pedestrian walkability index lah, boleh buat software lah, boleh buat itulah, boleh buat driving behavior, saya terlupa tu. Driving behavior punya context lah walkability. Macam tu. So that's right. That's why saya kata tadi, don't start big tau, start small. Then little by little it will evolve tau. Nampak ini tak nampak sebenarnya, tapi bring in people. Macam saya katakan Arizo, Ali, apa tadi sebutkan. Nampak. Because they bring in the picture, they bring in the dimension, they bring in the new context and how things become bigger. Sampai satu hari besok they going to be a big monster tau. You can snowball to that level tu. Tapi start with one little thing aja. Kita boleh jadi macam tu sebenarnya.
Very inspiring. Yeah.
Boleh.
Wow.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah. Okay. So I think allow me to read one question from our chat room that relevant to the questions that we discussed just now. So the question is that saya nak tanya soalan, bagaimana praktis kami boleh menulis mengenai kerja-kerja yang telah kami jalankan di tapak secara ilmiah dan berkolaborasi bersama penyelidik. So very much, I believe this is a question from the practitioner. Yeah, they have lots of data. How can they collaborate with researcher to produce technical papers? Over to you.
Dengar tak? Dengar.
Now we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, itulah soalan saya, Cik Din.
Okay. Allahu Akbar.
Saya sebab yalah macam kita ni praktis dah lama, sampai satu tahap kita ada banyak data.
Yes.
Banyak data terutamanya dalam pelbagai bidang. Maksudnya sebab kita melibatkan kerja-kerja di tapak, menyelesaikan masalah berkaitan dan berteru di design. Jadi macam saya ni ada banyak maklumat. So tengah belajar nak menulis. Itulah bagaimana kaedah ataupun cara. Sebab saya macam tadi Cik Din cakap, dia ada satu team kan. Macam mana kita tu boleh wujud?
Boleh. Okay, first we start off. Who is your target group yang nak present? Who is your target group or group of interest? Dia ada tiga. Satu is the common public. Right? Satu lagi the so called group yang the DIY group tau. How to do punya group ni. Dia always interested kan kita ada buku banyak on DIY dan sebagainya kan. So there's another group. Satu lagi we're talking about the professionals lah. But looking from your experience as professional, how you do things, how you manage things like that kan. Satu lagi sebab ditulis sini secara almiah, mana we are talking about almost like macam academic punya platform kan. Betul kan?
Ya, betul.
Okay. So kalau ini, so dia ada certain conventions though. When you see now you got the data, now you got the information, now you got the picture, right? But how do you want to structure it? How do you want to write it? How do you want to put it in such a way that it can be accepted as a book which has academic dimension, which has a researchable value to it, right? So one obvious thing that you need to do is to see what are the common issues related to your practice that you need to that is happening now. That's common ataupun topical issue. Huh? Kalau if we don't have an issue, that means you akan tulis everything, and people tend to hate that. Kan? Tapi kalau macam if you can break down, for example, you got 4 or 5 issues, kan? Then that issue, for example, could be the focus of what you want to write. Right? But the writing still macam lah. If they were talking, for example, macam mana nak tanam pokok. Kalau untuk yang akademik macam ni, ada gunakan sains teknologi. Untuk practitioners ada macam ni. Kalau untuk common public macam ni paper dia. Untuk journalist reading macam ni paper dia, macam ni dia punya content tu. Dan style of writing. Okay? So first and foremost, you identify the group and identify the issues. Yeah. And then once we have, let's say for example, let's take one particular issue. Right. For an academic writing, when you have an issue that you want to look at, for example, people tend to see what are the conventions of writing an academic paper. You need to have data, right? But let's say for example, you don't have a data, for example, per se, as what a data should be in terms of academic writing. Kena buat survey lah, kena apa semua. Let's know you don't have that one, but you still have something to say. So if you don't have that, the very least you could do is at least to at least underpin what you want to write based on a certain framework or based on a certain theory, based on a certain maxim, if you like. Then at least your argument could be measured, what you write can be measured against that particular established theory that you identified, contohnya. Then people can say, then people can look at your work quite seriously from an academic point of view. Itu saya nampak.
Okey, faham.
Salah satu caranya.
Yeah.
Okay? Sebab selalunya dalam any academic writing, one of the obvious questions that either they ask you at the first or the end, what is your underpinning theory? Kan? Tapi kalau tidak ada, dia say, ini macam Hashim sok-sok sendiri je nulis ni.
Ya, betul.
Lepas tu dia tulis pula tak tahu siapa sebenarnya nak baca ni. Student ke, you punya kawan-kawan dalam praktis ke, academic ke, ataupun general public, tak tahu. Itu kena ada fokus ni. Right? So actually it's all about it's about trying to focus on what you want to do, who you want to do. Then you only talk about how you want to do it.
Correct. Yeah.
Writing tu jangan masalah sih. Kalau tak pada tulis bahasa Inggeris pun tulis dulu. Sekarang ni ada Grammarly lah macam-macam pula.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay guys, ni saya nak promote diri saya ni. I've been doing improve reading for dah banyak kali tau. For PhD user. Tapi saya charge lah. Saya banyak student kat dalam Malaysia ni, dalam UiTM dan juga luar saya tak pernah. Ada kes-kes mana ada student saya atau student yang bukan saya, dia pergi kat luar buat proofreading sampai 3-4 ribu. Bila balik orang saya kata, no, I have to edit all over again. So ini promosi, siapa-siapa ada student PhD nak apa, ini dia. Tapi kena dalam bahasa Inggeris ya. Dalam bahasa Melayu tak tahu.
Yes, that's good. Yeah.
Hasim kalau nak tulis, tapi jangan tulis bahasa Melayu tadi. Tulis bahasa Inggeris, dan Grammarly check, lepas hantar pada saya. InsyaAllah.
InsyaAllah bro, tengah beli sikit.
Alhamdulillah.
Ada idea.
Alright.
Okay.
So,
Apa lagi?
ada satu lagi question. Maybe those who are online who might want to ask
question. Puan
question.
ada ni.
Puan ada. Yeah, Puan ada. So, maybe you can ask question to Prof.
I have a
Hasanuddin
question.
first.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Who's that?
Hi, Prof. My name is Nur Zuliza. I am
yeah,
an ex-student. Yeah.
Okay, silakan.
Hi, Prof.
Yang mana ni? Yang UTM ke?
UTM, brother. UTM. Sanjungan.
Ini you nak present Viva ni ke? Yang tu ke?
Iya ke? Ya, brother.
Tak boleh ni. Aku ada thesis kat rumah. Aku first chapter baca. First chapter pun dah isu dah. Okay,
Yeah,
Zuliza.
but the question is different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, doctor. I would like to ask how to deal with people who look silly on your creativity and distinguish it as a childish.
How do I
We sometimes would like to be creative, but people tend to look it as childish.
Okay, first and foremost, macam ni lah. Okay, let's not have a negative view of what people have their intention with regards when they see your child, for example. First and foremost, let's be very, very honest, yang macam kata, macam self-appraisal. Betul tak dia cakap tu? Tanya, ask yourself dulu. Be honest. Biar let's make a judgment on ourselves dahulu before we make judgment on the others. Penting dulu ya. So katalah Hasanuddin ni childish lah. Okay, that's what he says, for example. First and foremost, look at yourself. Mungkin kot. Look at yourself first. So be critical of yourself. Make judgment on yourself. Then you say, no, I'm not that. Everyone says I'm not childish. Then only then you make a judgment on the others. Tanya dia, kenapa awak panggil saya childish? Tanya pada dia. Mungkin dia ada personal, tak tahu kan. Tapi that's how you should do it. And then the day kalau dia tak terima juga, dia tak nak terima juga, dan saya rasa then ada day tak apalah. Saya kalau sekiranya saya childish dan apa dan mengganggu perasaan awak, saya minta maaf pun maaf. Habis cerita. We part in a very diplomatic ways. Kita sebab tak nak bawa dosa-dosa kita ke sana tu tau. Kita nak dia pun ada perasaan, kita pada perasaan. We don't want that. Kita nak bersih hati kita tu. Saya satu lagi yang paling penting yang bagi saya nak bagi tahu sebagai orang tua macam saya ni, I think whatever you do, sama ada you dah berjaya atau berjaya, atau especially berjaya lah, tolonglah, please have the humility in yourself lah. Have the humility, please. Because you know what, being humble and being modest, for example, you know, God works in mysterious way. Rezeki akan datang macam-macam cara. Yang tak disangka. Kan? Walaupun you tak bau pandai sebagai seorang lecturer, tapi insya-Allah dengan rezeki Allah, tengok macam-macam student dah jumpa. Seorang. Macam Dr. Ismail kan dekat UTM ni. Wah, Allah Rasul. Berpuluh-puluh PhD student dia. Habis. Itu rezeki dia. Sebab Dr. Mail macam tu. Sebab Dr. Mail, dia jenis yang saya cakap baik aku cakap tak elok. Dia memang very particular about student dia. Every time. Dia kadang weekend dia datang tau. So student appreciate that tau. So student by word of mouth bila graduate, datang student lain. Semua nak cik Dr. Ismail. Semua nak cik Dr. Ismail. Right? Saya di sini, kita dengan Allah, biar kita ada humility dan kita ada modesty. InsyaAllah rezeki akan datang. Walaupun orang kata macam mana, kita pulang pada dia. Tapi ni yang tanya tadi ni, tapi kalau betul kita childish, kita tunjukkan we are not childish dengan cara kita lah. Let our actions speak for ourselves. InsyaAllah satu hari Nuzulillah akan jadi orang berjaya. Orang yang kata Nuzulillah childish tu kata, mungkin dia terkejut. Dia akan sedar diri sendiri. Semakin satu hari dia akan datang jumpa you, minta maaf Puan Nuzulillah ataupun Dr. Nuzulillah pada tu, minta maaf. We never know. So itu cara kita. Okay, insyaAllah. Okay, good luck. You punya berapa 11 bulan dah sudah, Nuzulillah? 11 dia?
What? Apa dia doktor?
Dia punya bye-bye bila?
26 Julai.
26 Julai. So all the best.
Semua orang tahu ni.
Yeah, all the best from us. InsyaAllah. Yeah.
Thank you everyone.
Alright, good luck. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe from the silakan. Yes, before I read one from the chat room, silakan. Any question from?
Hello, Puan. Nice to see you. Allah Akbar.
How are you? I'm very impressed with your talk today. It's very amazing.
Alhamdulillah, thank you very much.
Yes, I love it. Recall like 25 years ago that you was my
Mr. Puan is one of my closest students, you know. I remember him as a student. He would never let me go, you know. He always come and see me and talk about things, and he's very, very receptive to what I say. You know, I think one of the person which I really appreciate, because he is a person who's always willing to listen to me all the time. And the way I think maybe in one minute way, I have an influence on what he is now. Minute, tak banyak. He is.
You really improved me a lot, Jidin. Actually, that's why I always look for you until today. When I know that you're going to sharing a talk today, I actually turn it on. I thought actually I started a bit late. Yeah, but still very inspiring. I just like the parts.
Yeah.
Because your passions on doing things, you know, is either teaching or either writing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Agreed.
So I just want to know how you have this spirit to continue this kind of passions for so many years.
Yeah, after 50 years, we will still witnessing that. Oh my God. Yeah.
That's why the energy Jidin has it.
I think, especially Puan and all designers, I think you know the answer sebenarnya. I think you know the answer. You know what? We as designers, the moment we get into that zone, wow. Sleepless nights, no problem. Tak makan 2-3 hari, tak ada masalah.
But sometimes because of a lot of problems around us, you know, we want to really want to let go, you know, but it's just that, we think back about rice bowl, then we feel that, okay, we go back.
No, like I said, but to me, actually, believe me, immediately after this, in 5 minutes after this, I'll get tired. Immediately, almost. And it'll take me at least 1 or 2 days to recover. Right? But now, alhamdulillah, and everyone knows this. Even my wife sometimes marah saya. Yeah? Because when I'm into this zone, for example, somehow I get the energy, I get the energy. I'm not saying things about, but this is me. That's why I say I think I'm saying this not because I only have this. I think designers will be able to relate to this. When you are in that zone, you just forget about that. Sampai ada ketika masa saya mula-mula yang tak apa elok tu, kadang-kadang semayang pun tertinggal tau. Ataupun masa semayang ingat lagi kerja-kerja tu. Sampai begitu sekali. Kau tak elok lah maknanya tu kan. Tapi dah tua-tua kita sedar lah kan. Tapi that level tau macam tu. That's what design can do bad to you or can do good to you. Right? But today, I think to me, today the passion is not so much what I say. Of course, it's also about what I say. But because I'm among people who I know very, very well. Right? I know very, very well. That's why it gives me that incentive to be able to share my views and also to share in a quite a passionate way, if you like.
Yeah, I can see that your energy can last very long.
Oh, please pray for that.
Battery.
Please pray for me.
It's rechargeable batteries. He don't need batteries. He need adapter. This is adapter.
Okay, sometimes I'm looking at other way. Actually, I'm looking at the bigger screen. I'm not looking at my laptop. Saya dapat lain tu. Okay.
Thanks, Tidin.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, hi Hatta. Okay, I think we're listening from Hatta. Yes, over to you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Tatia. Prof. Hasanuddin, Prof. Cik Din. Dulu panggil Cik Din kan.
Yes.
I'm glad that I received the WhatsApp today on this talk by Prof. Hasanuddin. It's been quite some time lah, tak dapat nak tengok muka pun kan. First memang banyak terima kasih lah pada Cik Din along the talk ni. But saya pun ada agak teringin nak tulis something on technical. So apa yang Cik Din ceritakan hari ni at least I know what's the direction that if you want to write on the technical or on the landscape or something like that. Because previously yang saya berkesempatan is become an editor to one of my brother-in-law writing books on pengurusan tapak bina, which is something that Hashim dah mention tadi kan. The book is being produced by UPM. He's an engineer. He wrote about the management of construction. So I just be part of the editorial lah.
Congratulations.
But sendiri tak tulis buku lagi kan. Apabila ada peluang hari ni dengar daripada Prof. Hasanuddin sendiri with the group of friends juga dalam webinar ni. I take the opportunity to listen on how you want to go about writing, and it's interesting to find out lah yang katakan is like working in a group to get your things moving. So it is very informative so that Mama can actually try to start on something. Macam kita tadi find something topic yang you want to start off to start writing. Okay, that's basically lah.
Hatta dalam group dynamics ni, it doesn't have to be more than one person. It can be just one other person pun boleh juga. But to me, the most important thing is to understand your dynamics and the dynamics of the other person. How both dynamics can work together. Don't have someone who's good in English, but you don't have a very good dynamics, especially personality dynamics. Tak boleh juga. It doesn't work like that. With my team that I have, for example, I think basically we more or less sorted out that the group dynamics and the working dynamics, also the personality dynamics. That's how things are. We able to do what we managed to do. Right? So we can kena hati-hati juga. So it's not just simply ambil orang to do it. No. Interest alone is not good enough. Personality dynamics kena ada juga. Yeah.
Another thing. Remember last time when we went somewhere in one of your project? Masa tu saya ikut Cik Din dengan Puan dengan siapa kot.
Wow, what about it?
Whereabouts? Kat mana tu?
And saya pun tak ingat kat Johor which area.
Tepi laut ke?
Yeah, with
tu. I remember. Yes, I remember.
And you mentioned one day, I'm not which day, one day we'll do something together. I'm not sure when it will
Subhanallah.
happen. Tapi saya harapkan maybe one day that will happen.
Atta ingat tak ataupun Puan ingat tak, one of the things that it may still be in your mind or imprinted in your memory somewhere. You know, bila ketapa tu, one of the things that I did was rather childish, if you like, Nuziliza ataupun rather comical ataupun rather bold. Practically most of the pasu-pasu kat situ semua saya sengitkan tau.
Oh.
Saya tegak.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Kenapa tak ada? Sebab people expect pasu tu akan tegak kan. So people sometimes you see this is sometimes you let's say you pay 2 or 300 ringgit for one pasu, one pot kan. Kalau tak tegak, people don't give a second look tau. BP give a first look but don't give a second look. But you put it that in a way that challenges the conventional way of placing a pasu. Kenapa sengit ni? Adakah dia jatuh ke ataupun sengaja dibuat? Bila sengaja dibuat tu, kenapa? Sama ada lelaki arkitek ni gila ke ataupun whatever. Tapi kenapa dia buat? See, that reaction to what you have done consistently throughout the we say, at least people are reacting to what you do kan? Yang paling bagus pula, mana yang jatuh tu di sini tegakkan pula. Lagi bagus, ada physical interaction. Macam tu sekali. So sometimes that's why I say, try to be a bit, kata orang gila-gila sikit ke, be a bit more creative ataupun be more resourceful. Don't take things on board based on what people have done. Think of it differently. Especially kalau barang-barang tu yang mahal tau.
Correct. People will notice, yeah.
Yes. Suka tak suka tu lain cerita ya, Nolzuliza. Suka tak suka tu lain cerita. Pasal dia reaction kepada apa yang kita buat tu.
Prof Din memang selalu macam tu. Memang selalu kreatif beyond normal. That's why
Yes, agree with you.
Tapi mungkin ada orang kata sebab dia abnormal ni orang. Orang kata sebab dia abnormal ni orang, tak tahulah.
The way you think make people want to stay longer with you.
Yeah, definitely. And to know you better, definitely.
Alhamdulillah.
Prof, there's one question.
Ada lagi?
One question here from Iber, PhD student from University Putra Malaysia. It's actually under my supervision. Thank you, Iber, for joining us this morning. So, Iber, would you like to ask the question yourself, or you want me to read it from the chat box?
Yes, if I can hear you.
Yeah, because we can hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Adil and Dr. B. I want to ask how to cultivate a clear thinking habit of writing thesis, because I found Professor Bean published a lot of thesis and quite efficient. So I think he must, Professor Bean, you must have very clear thinking while writing thesis. So I wonder how to cultivate clear thinking habits for writing thesis, because I found I'm writing thesis quite slowly for publishing and writing thesis for my research. Maybe it's because my thinking is not clear enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iber. Yeah, over to you, Prof. Yes.
So, with clarity, there are a couple of issues that I'd like to raise with you. Abby, where are you, Iber? Where are you from?
I'm from UPM. I'm Dr. Adia's student. And my country is China.
He's from China. Yes.
China. Okay. We're talking about clarity here, right? First and foremost, we're talking about clarity in terms of the writing, or is it in terms of the content?
Clarity.
Yeah, but what aspect is it about? Is it about the writing? Is it about the content? So some people they are not able to have a clear way of explaining what they do, because they don't have a very good form of writing, right? Because as I said, some people tend to be very convoluted in the way they write. For some people tend to misunderstand what they do. So the clarity was an issue. But in terms of content, when I say content, it could be this is even got to be very careful about this. If the content is the issue, then the clarity can be a very, very big issue as well. Because you know what, there is something wrong along the way in terms of you justifying the research problem, writing the objectives and research questions or aim, and then methodology, and also your discussion and result. And that's the because if you are clear, you see, that's why coming back to clarity, this is the issue. If the clarity is about writing, as I mentioned to student from China tadi tanya, itu tak ada masalah. You can even, if you're unethical, for example, you really sincerely say, your supervisor, I cannot write in English. So ask someone else to write for you, or not say write, but ask someone else to edit seriously your whatever you write in English, right? But to me, if this issue is about content, for example, then in terms of content, then could be a problem. Right? So look, see your supervisor again, see whether the sequence or the conventions of doing research, all the boxes have been ticked. Be very careful.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing is that from Iber, Prof, how to cultivate clear thinking habit. That means maybe Iber is talking about how to focus. Am I right?
Yes, I found that I write a lot of thesis, but I found my speed is slowly. I just maybe it's because my thinking is not clear enough. Yes, because I found a lot of thesis I read from the journal papers. They have very clear thinking. I'm not efficient, so.
Okay. In any work, if you're talking about what you want to write, you must be very, very clear about what is the objective of the writing. What is the output? What is the end game of the paper? You must be very clear about that one. That means if you're not, that means you're just kind of, taking one step at a time, but not knowing actually where you're going. You're just hoping that something will happen by luck. No, it should not be that way. You must have that objective. What is the end game? What is the output, for example? What is the final say? What is that red flag that you're trying to wave once you write the final sentence in that paper? You must have that. If you're not clear about the end game, then how can you write? Because that means, it's like, for example, I want to go to Penang from KL, for example. Right? That means you know how to get there, what time, everything, you know how long you take there. But if you just go to the station and say, where I want to go, I'm not quite sure. That means you decide, even at the station, to buy ticket, it'll take you 2 or 3 hours to decide where you want to go. That's why that means you say, why is everybody not your friend who has already reached Penang a lot earlier? Why is he not arrived? Because lo and behold, you are still at the station, still thinking about where you want to go. So that's not right. So get clear. That clarity is of what you want to do. You must have a clear objective. For example, like you want to get a PhD, or you want to have something at the end. What is it that you want to? If it's a paper, what is the end game? What is the red flag you're trying to wave? Once that clear, then in other words, I'm not saying to you that you have to work backwards or re-engineer the paper, but at least you have a very clear picture what the end game is going to be all about. When people design cars, they don't design the engine yet, They don't even design. What they do is they have things done with computer, whatever, then they do a mock-up model of the real actual model. So once they're happy with the model, then they will say, okay, where am I going to put the engine? How am I going to put an engine? What engine? So they start working backwards, But the car is already there. They have agreed that the car is going to look like that.
So the clear picture, yeah, Prof?
Yes, the clarity is in the clarity of what you see at the end game. At the end, it must be there. You know what? Okay, this is something. I want to relate to what I wanted to say to you regards to managing PhD. Every day when I work, I have no objective. Every day. Okay, this is what I want to do tomorrow. I set my objective tomorrow, right? And if I will, that will be my objective. And when I fulfill the objective, let's say because I work from 9 till 5 o'clock in the evening, right? When I finish my work, let's say I managed not to I finished the objective. Let's say even at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That means I've got another 5 hours to work on it. I said to myself, enough. I just pack my bag. The city is also not far away. I just simply walk around the city and enjoy myself. I go back home and on makan, minum, sebagainya. I finished the objective. Something like that. So you see, when you're able to finish it early, it's a reward, It's a reward that you should get. You should take. You say, okay, I finished at 12 o'clock. I finished my project. I want to work another day. No. Go back home. Set another objective for the following day, and so on. But make sure the objective is. Let's say, for example, by 5 o'clock you still have not fulfilled the objective. Do not be despair. You have planned in such a way, but it doesn't happen. Set it for another day.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's how you manage your emotions. That's how you motivate yourself for long.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before you know it, hey, I've done my thesis. It's not even 2.5 years. And yet I have a smile on my face every time I go back to see my wife or see my children. How was what? Macam tu sekali.
Subhanallah. Yeah, that's very true, and that's
Ah.
very inspiring also, Prof. Yeah. So and even are you happy? All right. So clarity sometimes even comes from your heart, not from the eyes. Yeah.
Yes.
So be happy while writing. Don't worry much.
I'm very happy.
And reward yourself, of course.
Don't worry, 3,000 ringgit for proofreading.
Yes.
Okay,
All
siapa tadi?
right. Any other
Assalamualaikum.
questions? Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Okey, saya Najib.
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 Saya ex-student UTM juga, ex-student
Mana
Dr.
gambar?
Nudin.
Mana gambar?
Sebab saya punya
Abang
video ni
Najib.
ada problem sikit.
Najib.
Saya dah try tu. Okey, okey macam ni, sebenarnya saya nak respon with yang the first issues lah about English lah. Long time ago memang saya pernah submit proposal for PhD student, tapi with another faculty. And then the first thing that I asked my sepatut menjadi supervisor is actually boleh tak saya buat in Malay rather than in English. And then she responded that your knowledge is not about language. You know, she said that knowledge is knowledge. You know, it's not about language, but language is part of the knowledge. But if you have, you know, if you have that, it's a bonus. But don't be afraid to write in Malay. But I decided not to continue because I would like to see the outside world. So I tak continue lah. And then I bekerja di luar. Okay, bila bekerja di luar, Doctor, and I've been involved with this so-called green technology and the low carbon city under the one of the ministry. This is actually there is a project funded by the UNDP, but then bila kita try to propose to engage with some of the researcher from the university, but some of them might not favor on that because they said that researcher in university is more on the ilmiah side, you know. It's quite hard to
very academic.
Them. And then because they are working in a fast mode, so that, you know, that's why they sometimes they refuse to engage with the researcher in the university. So what's your opinion on that? Because sometimes macam certain subject tu memang is very good for the researcher in university to explore. Like on the field that I've been involved is actually on the green technology and also the low carbon city development. So it quite very much related to our profession itself. But another thing is because some of them are not even know that the existence of the landscape architect punya profession in Malaysia. You know, when I come in on board on the company, I'm the only person that hold the bachelor in landscape architecture. You know, so because the rest of the team is actually engineering background and science, so they are quite confused on that. That's one of another reason that they. So what's your opinion on that? Sometimes benda tu very good to explore actually, even in the ilmiah side.
I think I can relate to that particular situation that you have faced before, because during my earlier years after I graduated with landscape architecture, masters in landscape architecture, I did do some practice here and there, you know. The project siapa tadi? Najib kan?
Saya involved dengan UNDP dengan ministry punya project. Kita buat develop low carbon city development lah program.
Actually, I wanted to refer to Hatta and Supua. They were talking about the project dekat Sungai Rengit tu, yang when I went to dekat Telur Ramonia. Okay.
Okay.
You see, the owner was ni cara panjang saya jawab nak jawab soalan
betul.
Okay, tak apa. The owner was from Wan Datuk, very from KL, right? He bought a land dekat Teluk Ramonia tu, wanted to turn that into high-end resort.
Okay.
With bungalows, things like that. And he has appointed a Singaporean by the name of David Naidu as the project manager.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So and then David Naidu had a local architect by the name of dia dekat Sulang Laut, nama dia Allah, nombor apa dia. Nama dia Allah, dah lama tak jumpa dia. So he appointed him as the architect. So was quite a good design. And they wanted to have a landscape architect. They wanted to have
okay.
Right. So they look around for various practices around JB and things like that. So for one reason or another, maybe he was the client was not that impressed. Things like that, right? So and then one day this particular architect, he also was my close friend. Kat sini dia quit UTM, dia went on his own.
Okay.
Alright. He came and see me. Din, apa dia ada projek apa nak join tak? Masa tu kita muda lagi kan, kita excited lah kan. I said, why not? Kita pergi. So he took me over to this place, a long drive, about 2 hours drive from dari sini, daripada sini.
Okay.
I meet up with this particular David Naidu.
Okay.
You know what? So we had this. So we had a chat. He not the interview. We had a chat and things like that. Maybe he was just kind of trying to do an appraisal of me as being a person. Me as being a landscape architect and things like that. I said at that time, I'm not professional. I'm not practicing. I'm an academician, for example. But this is what I think I'm able to do. So we had a chat around things like that. And lo and behold, I think the day after, whatever it is, he said, "Okay, Dean, you're on."
Okay.
You're on. And you know what? I was still trying to figure out. I was thinking after that, what was the reason why he wanted to bring me on? Whereas you have all the other professional landscape architects. I was only one. I was working alone,
Yeah.
I was working alone. So after a few interaction with him, I think that I have a feeling that he was assured by what I was able to do. Side, even though I'm an academician,
Yeah.
But I tried to meet him halfway from his perspective so that things have to move in fast. Right? I'm an academician, tak kan ada teori dan sebagainya kan. So in a way, I try to simplify the so-called concept like that. Simplify the concept, simplify the theory if you like. Tapi jangan gunakan perkataan teori. Kata, kan. But try to simplify the concept and explain to him kenapa buat macam ni. And I explain to him. And I think in a way he was quite very much impressed with that. Or in favor of what you said. I said, okay, Asabdin, go on buat. And that's how I managed to get the project. Satu lagi. Remember, he is from Singaporean. He's working with advertising company. He owns his advertising company tau. So he's an Indian, David Naidu. Dia memang kerja dari bawah. He works from the bottom to establish himself. His English is very, very good. He's so proud of his ability. But he said to me, Hasanuddin, you are the first person in Malaysia that I can talk to.
Okay.
I have been with other Malaysian professionals. When I drive them in their car from Teluk Ramania to JB, my God, it was torturous. I couldn't have a conversation with them. We talk in English, but I could not have a conversation. But whenever
is it because of they cannot speak in English or they didn't understand or what's the reason behind it?
He understands. What this guy is a very poetic person. This David Naidu.
Okay.
Very poetic. So he likes people to converse to him in a similar manner.
Okay.
They have certain element, have nuances, have sarcasm, and so on. And good English and pronunciation and things like that. Very fluent, very articulate. Dia suka betul. Dia suka benda tu. And I think I fit that particular picture, and he enjoyed. And I think my work mungkin lebih kurang. I was not very good designer, but maybe he enjoyed my presence. Even though my contribution professionally was so and so, but I think he enjoyed my presence. Until the project ends.
It's a personality.
So Najib, jadi maknanya when you have people like this, I think the best way is actually to meet them halfway. Don't try to do academic. Even though say, but be very truthful. I come from the academic background. But I'm able to meet you halfway in terms of fulfilling what you want, but very much along the lines of pragmatic approach or very practical approach, or even do away with theory and things like that, academic approach. But this is what we can do. Because sometimes we tend to spend too much time on theory and and conversation. When I
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
what you want to
Agree.
do can be thrown, can be pushed aside. If can still achieve what we want to do without that conversation. Boleh buat juga. Boleh buat juga. Tak ada
Yeah.
masalah. I know many students, hati-hati aku tahu, atau student yang dah grad, Cik Din, when dah grad dia tak buat pun ni, sign nasi macam ni, tak buat macam ni pun semua, buat bisa, okey juga. Betul juga. Tapi sebenarnya, tak sebenarnya, let's be honest, tak secara langsung, you sedar ataupun tidak, sebenarnya that theory yang tu ada lah sebenarnya otak, dah ada dah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
You guna sebenarnya.
Yes.
Ada.
Correct.
Or maybe we use it by in a different way, you know.
Ya, kita
Yeah,
sedar.
yeah.
Cara berfikir, cara macam
Yeah.
mana ada guna-guna.
The way we think, you know, the way we clarify
It's
things,
just that
you know, it's different.
you have not manifested that thought dalam bentuk batu paper ataupun dalam bentuk
exactly.
itu saja. Tapi
Yeah.
the thought is there.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So, itu saja beza dia. Sebab kalau mungkin makan masa kan. Tapi tinggi tak makan masa. Tapi sebenarnya tinggi along the lines of economy. So tak ada masalah sebenarnya.
Yes, yes, yeah. Okay.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
Prof.
Yeah.
That's good.
I have one last question from Majid here. Majid, are you here? So that would be the last question. And before Majid raise a question, I wish to have everybody to get ready for a photo session. So make sure that you on your video after this so that we can have a good photo. So while you are preparing for the video, allow us to have one question from Majid. Or else
Majid.
he's not gonna be sleeping tonight. So over to you, Majid.
Majid, mana gambar Majid?
Thank you so
He's
much.
here.
This is Majid. Majid Asani. Where are you from, Majid?
Yeah.
I'm from Iran.
Oh, Iran. Alhamdulillah. Whereabouts? Iran? Where from Iran?
Tehran.
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 Okay.
You see, the student that I talked to you about just now is from Tehran. You see, I've got so many Iranian students. They are practically begging me to come over to their place. Prof, I'll buy the tickets for you, but once you are there, many of students from all over the cities are going to take you everywhere, all over Iran. They beg me. Some of them even say, please do that, find time. I've been really good friends with Mary. I know many of them are very brilliant, very hardworking, and very, very nice. I got so many things from Iran when they came and see me. Okay, anyway, coming back to you. Okay.
Okay, Majid. Yes.
Majid.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, salam wabarakatuh.
Majid, a bit louder, please. A bit louder, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much for inspiring speech, Doctor. Doctor, actually, I'm working on Islamic architecture right now. And
On what? Sorry. On what?
On
Islamic architecture.
Islamic architecture. Okay.
And roughly half of my references are in Persian language or Arabic language. And this is always my concern that I cannot translate properly and cannot deliver the main aim of the content. And this issue slowed me down in writing process. Have you ever had faced this problem? Because I cannot trust myself 100%.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
Okay, all right. Understood.
Don't worry, I got the answer for you.
Yeah, so Prof.
Right. Either in Arabic or in Persian, okay? Decide. You have difficulty in translating that. All right. Have you heard about the content analysis? You know about content analysis? Right. So have you done a content analysis on those things, for example, either in Persian or in Arabic? Have you done that? Majid?
Just not much, Doctor.
No. Because this is very, okay. This is another, especially to the students, lecturers semua dah pandai tak apalah. The students, you see, nothing convinces the examiner if you have a system of doing things. Right? So Majid, let's say, for example, they have doubts about the validity or reliability of your translation or of your interpretation work that you did for both of the languages, either the one in Arabic or the one in Persian. Okay, Najib, let's say, for argument's sake. Okay, you with me, Majid? Right?
Yes.
So, but now, okay, right. So what you can do is now to add another aspect of the work. You can still do the translation, but do the content analysis. Content analysis, everyone knows. It's a well-known method of analysis. Do the content analysis, for example. So try to work on the thematic content of those Arabic. Then try to do your analysis, either thematic or interpretation or whatever it is. Then based on that one, you have certain. First and foremost, you have a system. Then you have a data. It could be a quantitative analysis. It could be a thematic. It doesn't matter. But to me, you see, by doing that, then the doubts that they may have but your ability to translate maybe slightly diminished, you know, as opposed to not doing the content analysis. Right? Because the content analysis provides you the structure, an very obvious structure, very tangible structure. All people all around the world use content analysis to do to work on qualitative analysis. But you are using it to as a form of translation analysis. You can do that. Right?
Okay.
So to me,
Right.
when you talk about translation, you don't talk about translation word for word. You know that, isn't it? Just look at the essence of the word and use that essence to be what you identifying when you do the analysis. And you should be
Correct.
well on your way.
Yeah.
Right? So okay, final word, everyone, yeah, students especially. Please make sure you have a system, you have a methodology for everything that you do. And don't say you just because you do this based on what you think is preferable. No, you won't have a ground to stand on or leg to stand on. Must have a system. Even though the lecturer may not agree with what you do, but you have system, they have to say, okay, I may not agree what you do, but you have system, okay, the system says fine, you should be okay.
Yes.
Right? Have a method, have a system, have a software or whatever to justify your work. Especially if you're not good with writing, you know. Because if you're good at writing, you can be persuasive. But if you're not good at writing, then you can be in trouble.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So I think that's all for Majid. Yeah, a very interesting and exciting way to go with your thesis and also for everyone here. And ladies and gentlemen, I know we have already extended our session for about 43 minutes by now.
Yes.
So that was quite some time for everybody to still be with us. And being moderator today, I have less work to do because there are lots of questions coming up until I have to say, okay, enough and no more questions, right? Not to say no more questions, but I know that there are so many things that you want to ask to Prof. Landscape Architect, Dr. Hassanuddin. Of course, many other things that you want to discuss, but I believe Prof is always welcome for you to contact him, email him so that you can ask any questions pertaining to your situations and whatnot. Yeah. So I think we have to conclude this session by even though it's a very sweet memories for me to be moderating my own teacher, Professor Landscape Architect Dr. Hassanuddin, my very own teacher, the one who really inspires me even until today. And the best thing is that he still remember me. That's the best thing I would always be happy with. Thank you so much. And also to other colleagues here and my students. Thank you so much, Prof, for your inspiration and motivation. We can't do this better without you. So
Thank you.
inshallah, and to all other participants, we hope that our today's session, it's a narrative session, not so much about very technical things, but the more important thing is that it provides you a foundation for you to jump ahead, for you to do better, and for you to get to know yourself and contribute to the world, to the nation, inshallah.
Yes.
Okay?
Most importantly, you can do it. You can do it.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
my
So
final
that's
word.
the thing.
If I
We
can do
all
it,
can
you
do
can do
it.
it.
Yes.
I'm not
Okay.
speaking this for the sake of encouraging you, no, possibly no. If I can do it, you can do it.
Inshallah. Yes, remember that. Remember today at 12:45, if Prof. Landscape Architect Dr. Hassanuddin can do it, we all can do it, right?
Yes.
Wow, goosebumps,
InsyaAllah.
okay?
Can do it.
Inshallah.
InsyaAllah.
Yes,
Inshallah.
all right. Yeah,
Okay.
so now it's a photo session. Give a very big smile, okay? So Dr. Fairuz will take the photo, yeah? Dr. Yazid. Dr. Yazid? Always mistaken Dr. Yazid and Dr. Fairuz. So Dr. Yazid, are you ready? Okay, all right. So give us a very big smile so that this can be part of a beautiful memories for each one of us. Okay, all done. Okay, all done. So with that, thank you, Prof. Thank you so much for today's session. It is truly different from the rest of the webinar we have had before. Very personalized, but very inspiring. And it's very difficult to get someone to really share the beauty and also the hindrance that he has been through with a true heart. So we appreciate that, Prof. Barakallah. So hopefully we can meet up again with other sessions. And to all our students and colleagues here, it is our precious time to be together. Stay safe, stay happy, and remember that we are all can do it. Right?
Yes.
So with that, Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank you so
Waalaikumsalam.
much.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prof.
everyone.
Atia.
Thank you
Thank
you very much.
Thanks.
Salam kepada Suhari Osman.
Inshallah,
Assalamualaikum.
yes, we'll do that. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Thank you.
Thank you
Because
so much.
everybody don't want to leave the screen. If you want to speak to Prof, whatever, the formal session has ended up, but you're free to chit chat or whatsoever. Okay, so